Tune into Free Speech TV for Democracy Now!, a national, independent, award-winning news program bringing you people and perspectives rarely seen on corporate media.
I probably would make a time machine.
I would make medicine for the sick.
I'd probably invent something new.
我会赢到5个总冠军戒指。
If I could have an extra 5 years to live.
You said 5, right?
5 years.
It's a long time.
I would try to fix everything I did bad.
I would bring my uncle back because I miss him very much.
I would get more hamsters.
I would probably want to go looking for dark matter.
I think I'd go looking for aliens.
If I could live an extra 5 years.
I was thinking about making like a helicopter, like a wooden helicopter, but I don't have any wood.
I want to go check out the moon sometime.
I'd probably teach my sister not to hate tuna.
I would try and invent a machine that lets you run at light speed. If I had 5 more extra years to live, I would be the boss of all the chipmunks.
Eu cantaria na frente de 1 milhão de pessoas.
I don't really know. I think I'd do anything. Why are you asking me that?
You wouldn't let money just blow out of your house. So when your AC or heater is on, make sure the doors, windows, and fireplace flue are shut tight. If you're headed out, turn down the AC or lower the heat by 10 degrees. And always keep your water heater set at 120. A little bit of common sense goes a long way. Get more great tips at energysaver.gov.
Hey, what do you say, friends and neighbors? Good to see you today. I want to take a little time out from the news of the day to talk about something very, very, very important. And we've got for you today, well, you've heard all about the Ice Bucket Challenge, right? That the most successful fundraising effort, I think, ever in history to raise money to find a cure for that dreadful disease, ALS. Well, we've got something a little different than the Ice Bucket Challenge and maybe a little more comforting. It's not the Ice Bucket Challenge today. It's the Coffee Challenge, yeah. And we also want the Coffee Challenge, to raise money for Free Speech TV to be the most successful fundraising effort ever for Free Speech TV, especially here on the Bill Press program. Now, this is so much easier. You don't have to get all a bucket of ice water over your head. You don't even, of course, you don't have to have hot coffee poured over your head. Here's how it works. You help us at Free Speech TV, and we will send you tons of coffee to enjoy, depending on how much you can help, of course. Now, I don't have to tell you why we need your help. Free Speech TV, the only truly independent cable television network out there at all, and the only truly progressive television network out there. And the only way we can stay independent is no government money, no corporate money, no foundation money. It is all just your donations that keep us going. And look what you get for your dollar. You get this great lineup of progressive hosts every day, me and Tom Hartman, Stephanie Miller, Amy Goodman, and others all day long, bringing you the news of the day with our commentary, our insights, and, of course, your calls and your comments as well. So for the Coffee Challenge, if you can help us with just $10 a month, $120, we'll send you a pound of coffee and a Bill Press mug. If you can help us with $240 or just $20 a month, we'll send you that mug and a pound of coffee and a French press. How about it? To put it all together. For $30 a month, $360, the mug, the coffee, the French press, of course, and something very, very special, you'll be part of what we're calling Voice of the People. You and I will have a 5-minute telephone conversation. We'll record all those telephone conversations of people at the $360 level. We'll put them together and play them on the air, your chance to become a national celebrity with me here on The Bill Press Show. That's for $30 a month or $360. And, of course, if you have the means and are willing to send $1,000 to Free Speech TV, God bless you. You make your way to Washington. Carol and I will take you out to dinner and invite you into the studio the next morning to watch the show. Help us as much as you can. Join the Coffee Challenge at 1-877-378-8669 or go to our website, freespeech.org. All of us here at Free Speech need your help, and thank you for your help.
Sometimes when I'm walking down the street, I'm not necessarily looking out and seeing all these water-wasting lawns and people that aren't as connected to their neighbors and their lives as they could be. I'm walking down the street looking, going, edible oases, rainwater-fed landscape, and just looking at the possibility of these sort of landscapes up and down the streets of neighborhoods and communities all across this world. Small actions do ripple and they add up and they have a cumulative impact. And so when you're building upon your small mindful actions, you have the confidence and the ability to take on something a little bit greater. So that would be nice. This, in the context of where we're at as a planet with climate change and these really big issues and people that are more disconnected and less skilled than ever, it becomes even more amazing and powerful how much of a solution this is to design these ecological gardens and to come together with shared vision and shared voice. There's never been a time where your choices have mattered more. Doing something as simple as us transforming a landscape creates a model that anybody could look at far and wide, and you're sharing food and connecting and building skills together in your own neighborhood. It's a richer way to live in normal times, but in the new normal of climate change and erratic weather and economic upheaval, it becomes essential. Whether it's me, you, Gandhi, Che, MLK, Willy Wonka, whoever, past, present, or future, the power of our daily actions is all that we have. And like Archimedes said, give me a place to stand and a lever long enough and I'll move the world. And that's what those simple actions do. They move the world every day.
Broadcasting around the nation, on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
President Obama today to up our efforts to fight Ebola. Going down to Atlanta for that, the CDC. Hello, everybody. What do you say on a big Tuesday? Good to see you. Good to see you. And thank you for joining us. Tuesday, September 16, The Bill Press Show on your local progressive talk radio station, wherever you are in this great land of ours. On the Free Speech TV, wherever you are in this great land of ours. Out there, both on radio and television, and worldwide on our video stream at TawkrTV. YouTube.com/TawkrTV. You're looking good this Tuesday. A little rain overnight here in Washington, D.C., but otherwise, it's a beautiful day and nice fall weather we are having. Not chilly at all. Don't need a jacket yet, but it's definitely. Summer is gone. Summer was like a week. The typical Washington summer was just.
Well, this is the bummer, right? So summer is officially over this weekend. Well, we've already had our fall. We're going to go straight into winter. It's going to be snowing in like 2 weeks. You watch.
So we'll have a week of fall, I guess.
Yeah, we get the week of fall, and then it's winter.
Oh, yeah.
Just like we have like a week of spring, and then it's full summer.
Well, whatever it is, I'm ready for it.
Yeah,
I guess that's what it is. Yeah, and we're ready to take you through the news of the day today, wherever it's happening, whether it's here in our nation's capital, around the country, or around the globe. We're there with you. We got it covered. We'll tell you all about it. On every level, from sports to politics to ladies' fashion. We've got it all covered here.
Is that right?
Yeah. Food and drink. We got it. Yeah. Okay. latest advances on the medical front. There's nothing that escapes our attention. We'll tell you about it, and you tell us what you think about it. Give us a call at 866-55-PRESS. Send us your comments on Twitter at BP Show and on Facebook at facebook.com/BuiltPressShow. The team here, Peter Ogburn and Lisa Murphy. Hello, guys.
Hey, good morning.
And look who crawled back in this morning, Alicia Cruz, desk back from Balmer. Alicia, good to have you back. And Cyprian Bolding here, our videographer. We need him to keep us looking good on Free Speech TV and on YouTube.com/TawkrTV. And, man, I got to tell you, we apologize every time, but when your team is doing as well as the Nats are, you got to brag about them.
Yeah,
and
man.
They are, no doubt, they are in the playoffs. So are the Orioles, by the way. So we got this thing going here between Balmer and Washington.
That's right.
But let's just talk about the Nats. They're definitely in the playoffs. And with they win 2 more games. Well, actually, they win 1 more.
Right.
If they beat the Braves again, they are the division leaders.
That's it.
And
they win the division.
National League on the East Coast. And so, and they beat the Braves last night in Atlanta. And the Braves were their real problem all season long, right? Until the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, look, at the beginning of the season, the Braves were a problem.
They could not beat the Braves.
Nationals didn't have a great start to the season. They certainly turned it around.
But they are clicking, man.
They really are.
I mean, they are hitting the ball. They're getting, double base, multiple base runs, whatever. Yeah.
And what I think is great about it is it's not Bryce Harper. It's not Steven Strasburg.
No, Wilson Ramos and the whole
Rendon,
gang.
Desmond,
Anthony Rendon. They're all hitting them. Boom, 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 boom. They got a great lineup, and they just won't stop. Last night in Atlanta again. The final score was 4-2. Here is Wilson Ramos, as we mentioned, taking his home run. Charlie Slows from WJFK tells us all about it.
Here's the wind of the 1-0. Into the air to left center field. Long run for B.J. Upton. Going back, way back. Going, gone, goodbye. It's a home run for Wilson Ramos.
I always love those games that are away, and you hear the announcer get all excited about a home run, and then nothing from the crowd.
Nothing.
But you have to admit that audio sounds so much better with Travis Waldron in studio.
It does. Yeah.
We haven't checked in on Travis.
Haven't checked in. No, not at all. But so the final score again, 4-2. And they're in Atlanta, of course, again tonight. One more win against Atlanta, the Braves in Atlanta will put them in the division leadership here. So take us through the show today. Arthur, it's Tuesday. That's Arthur Delaney Day, Igor Volski Day. Both of them in. Arthur from Huffington Post, Igor from Think Progress, of course. A little bit later, we're going to be talking with Terry O'Neill, who has the president of the National Organization for Women. Made a lot of news lately by calling for the firing of NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell. In fact, she commissioned some planes to fly over one of the stadiums Sunday, I think it was, with a banner back that fire Roger Goodell. And I think that's planned for 2 or 3 more stadiums this weekend. Good. So, yeah, she's on it. She's going to tell us all about it a little bit later in the program. And Adrian Peterson, NFL in more trouble for child abuse than we talked about yesterday. But first...
This is the Full Court Press.
Just a couple of other stories making news. We'll pick it up with Major League Baseball that you were just talking about. The Phillies pitcher Jonathan Papelbon is in a little bit of trouble. He blew a save earlier this week when he gave up 4 runs to the Miami Marlins at the top of the ninth. The Phillies went on to lose. But as Papelbon was leaving the inning and the crowd was booing him and making gestures towards him, he stopped and he, there's really no delicate way to say this, he grabbed his nuts in front of the stadium as a way of saying, screw you. Now, he says he was just adjusting his athletic supporter. Major League Baseball did not buy that. They threw him out, and yesterday they gave him a 7-game suspension.
Whoa.
Wow.
Because of the obscene gesture in front of the crowd.
My God. I think there was a more delicate way of saying that, by the way. Family jewels.
Family jewels.
Yes, okay.
Sure.
Right,
I think you know what I was talking about.
Wow. Yeah, I did.
In Denver, there is a new show coming to the internet. It's going to be a web-based show called The Marijuana Show.
Oh, of course.
Guess what it's going to be about? It's going to be about marijuana. It's a reality TV show, and they're looking for folks who have marijuana business-related ideas to sort of pitch their ideas on this web show. They're calling it sort of a mix between The Apprentice and Shark Tank, where you come up with an idea, and then they're going to have people who are going to invest between $25,000 to $1 million in this marijuana-related business.
I got an idea. Brownies?
Sure.
That's never been done before.
Yeah, a couple great ideas out there, I'm sure. And which profession drinks the most coffee? A new study surveyed 10,000 professionals.
Cops.
All right. Okay. So, police officers, number 2 on the list.
Oh.
Number 2
close,
on the list. Pretty close.
No, number 1. No, I'm not. No idea.
Don't look too far.
Talk show hosts.
Journalists and media staff drink the most coffee of any profession in the United States.
That makes sense.
Again, they polled 10,000 people. 85% admitted to drinking at least 3 cups of coffee per day. 70% said that they believed that their work performance would be affected if they didn't have their coffee.
And here I am, and I don't even drink coffee.
I know. Also on the list.
That's why I didn't think of it. I keeping the average down, I guess.
That's right. Also on the list, number 3 is teachers, which that makes sense. I need more than coffee after a day of dealing with students. Plumbers and trade workers, number 4, and nurses and medical staff, number 5. There you go.
Have another cup of coffee, too.
You got it. You got it.
14 minutes after the hour, yes, the NFL continues. Bad news, babes. I'm telling you, every day the news gets worse and worse. You still wonder how long Roger Goodell can hold on and why they don't just fire him, because he's the one who's really created this culture of violence, both on the field and off the field. We talked so much yesterday about all the numbers on and how many people have been among the NFL are arrested every year. I mean, average 22 players per team, which is huge when you consider there are only 53 full members of the team and 8 on the practice squad. So that's like 1/3 almost of their players every year are arrested for some offense. And among those we mentioned yesterday was Adrian Peterson, who has been indicted for child abuse because he beat his 4-year-old son with they think a tree branch, right? They're not really sure. But their video, I mean, you can see the pictures of the cuts and abrasions to the kid's body. He's indicted by the grand jury for child abuse. He says it was just, it's like stern parenting. Well, overnight, word has come out that this is not the first time. He had another son, and when that son was 4, this was about a year ago, he hit this kid in the head so hard that he had a laceration on his head. And again, Peterson says this is nothing but stern parenting. The team is, in a sense, standing behind him. They have said, and here is the Rick Spielman, who's the general manager of the Vikings. Well, he hasn't gone to trial yet, He's been indicted, but he hasn't been found guilty. He's innocent until proven guilty, and we will let him stay on the squad and play until the legal process works itself out.
The photos are disturbing. I understand that. But to be clear, any matter that's involving the child is very important for this organization. But we also think that it is right for him to go through the process legally.
We also lost a game on Sunday and could really use him.
Yeah, right. That's the
message I hear.
That's the message, exactly. So that's the first question, really. Should he be able to play while this is being investigated? And, that's a tough one because it is true. That's our kind of creed, right? Innocent until proven guilty. At the same time, these players sign a contract with a moral clause in it, right? That they basically promise that they're going to live by a different code, right? Yeah. And not do anything that's going to get them in trouble with the law. And I think it sends a pretty lousy message to have this either wife beater or child abuser on the field as if, boom, right?
Yeah, look, due process.
No
innocent
problem.
Until proven guilty. That's fine. But I also think that there's no harm in saying you need to sit down right now until you sort this out.
Yeah, you have violated our standards, our code of conduct, and you're going to have to pay the price. So one question. Then the other question is, you've got some players, notably Charles Barkley, and former NBA star, right, who defends this and says, oh, everybody in the South does this.
I'm from the South. I understand boomers' rage and anger, but I think, listen, we have to accept we were born in, he's a white guy, I'm a black guy. I don't know where he's from. I'm from the South. Whipping is, we do that all the time. Every black parent in the South is going to be in jail under those circumstances.
Yeah, whipping. We do that all the time. Every black family in the South, they do that. That's just their way. That is so wrong. And that's exactly what Adrian Peterson is saying, is my mother did this to me. I'm doing it to my son. Yep. This is the way you teach kids. Raised. This is the way you tell kids how to behave, right? But for when you see those, they're just not. I mean, they're grown men, yeah, but these are big bruisers, right, out on the field who get paid for knocking people around, and then to do that to a 4-year-old kid, no. I don't think there is, and I say this as somebody. I was whipped or spanked anyhow when I was a kid. You can never raise your hand to a child. Never. It's never okay. Not for a teacher, not for a mother, not for a father.
Yeah.
Right? I mean,
and plain and simple. And look, I mean,
that's the
on
rule.
one hand,
no excuse.
I understand because you've been through it as I have been through it.
And they can sometimes drive you crazy.
Sure, absolutely.
Yeah.
You had parents that whooped. I had parents that whooped. We both have kids of our own. The temptation, like especially having the wiring that we've been given of saying that that's how parents do things, it's not easy.
No.
Right? But you also have to know you don't do that. And there have been, every child psychologist, every parenting expert now essentially agrees. You don't hit kids. You don't hit kids. It's different than it used to be. It's not what it used to be 20 years ago.
Right. No,
you don't do it.
I can't believe that in this 21st century we are having this argument, this debate today, and we had it the last few days about domestic abuse. You do not strike a woman.
Right.
You do not do it. Period. Even if you're married to her, Ray Rice, you do, or she's your fiance. Right. You do not strike. Period. As Joe Biden said the other day, you never lift your hand in anger at a woman. You don't, and also you do not strike a child. Period.
Yeah.
And here both of these things brought back by these NFL players, by cases of NFL players.
And I realize what Charles Barkley is trying to say. I don't agree with it at all. And I know that in the South
first of all, I don't think it's true.
I don't think
every black family in the
South does it. I don't think that's true at all. But I do know that the way I was raised in the South and the way everybody that I know was raised in the South is we got spanked or whooped. Now, a swat on the tush when a kid gets close to a hot stove or something like that, I don't do. But you want to have that conversation, let's have that conversation. But that is not what Adrian Peterson did.
No.
Not even close.
No. He took
there are lacerations. There's a head wound.
Yeah.
Sticks that he's beat. One of the most powerful men in the NFL
has to pick up a stick.
Pick up a stick
to beat your kid.
Beat a kid with it.
Yeah.
That's totally different.
And then the team says, well, he can continue to play until the court finds him
crazy,
guilty.
Man.
Crazy. What do you think about it? Should he be able to play? And any excuse for child abuse? 866-55-PRESS on a Tuesday Bill Press Show.
This is the Bill Press Show.
You wouldn't let money just blow out of your house. So when your AC or heater is on, make sure the doors, windows, and fireplace flue are shut tight. If you're headed out, turn down the AC or lower the heat by 10 degrees. And always keep your water heater set at 120. A little bit of common sense goes a long way. Get more great tips at energysaver.gov.
What the frack? What the frack? What the frack?
What the frack?
President Obama, are you fracking kidding me?
Reopen the EPA studies.
In Texas, Wyoming, and Pennsylvania.
Fracking pollutes our oceans.
Fracking poisons our water.
Fracking makes climate change worse.
Fracking relies on toxic chemicals that cause cancer.
Ban fracking now.
Ban fracking now.
Go on. Ban it.
Ban fracking now. Please.
Hey, friends and neighbors, take a little time out now for just a word about Free Speech TV, how important it is, and how much we depend on your help. You know, I hate to tell you this, but I've been around this radio and television business for a long time now, starting out with KABC TV in Los Angeles and KABC Talk Radio, moving on the radio front over to KFI Radio, on TV over to KCOP Radio, and then bouncing back here to Washington, D.C., 6 years on CNN at Crossfire, and then a couple of years at MSNBC with Pat Buchanan on Buchanan and Press, and then Current TV, of course, covering and carrying our nationally syndicated radio show on a simulcast. But I got to tell you, with all of those different great organizations I've worked for, I have never felt that so totally free and so totally independent in terms of broadcasting the news of the day as I do here on Free Speech TV, because Free Speech TV, that's what it is. I mean, it's a progressive voice channel, 24/7, totally independent. As you know, no government funding and no corporate funding and no big donor pressure at all. Totally independent. And how do we do it? Well, that's thanks to you and to your support. We couldn't do without it. And that's why we turn to you once or twice a year to ask you to first of all, to thank you for being so generous, and then to ask you to help out again as much as you can. And there's some premiums that we can offer this time around, maybe to make it more attractive for you to dig in and help us out. If you can help us with just $10 a month, $120 a year, we'll send you a Bill Press mug and a pound of coffee. For $240, that mug, that coffee, and a French press. That's just $20 a month. For $30 a month, $360 a year, a mug, a coffee, the French press, and you'll participate in what we're calling Voices of the People. You and I will have a 5-minute phone conversation about whatever issue you want to talk about or issues you want to talk about, and we'll put all those together and we'll air them on our show as Voices of the People. You can be part of that. And if somehow you can make your way to Washington, D.C. and send $1,000 to Free Speech TV, make your way to Washington, Carol and I will take you out to dinner and bring you into the studio the next morning to watch the show. However, whatever level you can help out, please give us a call at 877-378-8669 or go to the website freespeech.org. help as much as you can. And thank you for being so generous and allowing us to do a great job with you every day. 7 minutes after the hour now. Whoa. Time flies, man.
Right.
I've got to tell you, Arthur Delaney coming up next. Talking about Adrian Peterson raising this issue. Can you believe it? We're still talking about corporate punishment. Corporal punishment. Beating kids. Ever okay? Adrian Peterson said, yeah. It's a stern parenting. That's what we call it. Not in my house. Helen, up in Ithaca, New York. Hi, Helen.
Hi, good morning to everyone.
Thank you.
Hi. I'm wondering, why can't we, join the rest of the world and things? Why don't we focus on soccer or something? Because the
Good question.
is causing so much trouble right now. And we've got, I don't know what is, a third? All right, apologize me for not having the statistics ready here, but these people end up with, head injuries, and they end up with,
Well, no, it's 1 out of 3. Yeah, they admitted over the weekend 1 out of 3 will end up with serious brain trauma. Right, the players. Okay, so this is a violent sport. And Helen, what you're saying is that we've learned that they are as violent off the field as they are on the field.
Yeah, so why don't we get universal health care, and why don't we play soccer? How about that?
All right, I'm for it. Seriously.
I think she's onto something. If you don't like what Roger Goodell has done in the past couple of weeks, if you don't like the fact that Adrian Peterson is playing this weekend, then don't watch the NFL this weekend. I'm not.
Yeah.
Why would you watch that?
Yeah. No, it's a good point. And also, why of all the nations in the world are we the only ones who love this violent form of football? Arthur Delaney, Huffington Post, comes on next. We'll keep the calls going.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Two anti-government, self-described revolutionaries have shot up a pizza restaurant as well as a Walmart in Las Vegas.
The internationally syndicated political series, The David Pakman Show, provides progressive talk, analysis, and interviews with the nation's youngest radio and television host, David Pakman. Find out more and catch up on all the latest episodes by visiting our website at freespeech.org.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello, that's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
Hey, friends and neighbors, take a little time out now for just a word about Free Speech TV, how important it is, and how much we depend on your help. I hate to tell you this, but I've been around this radio and television business for a long time now, starting out with KABC TV in Los Angeles and KABC Talk Radio, moving on the radio front over to KFI Radio, and on TV over to KCOP Radio, and then bouncing back here to Washington, D.C., 6 years on CNN at Crossfire, and then a couple of years at MSNBC with Pat Buchanan on Buchanan and Press, and then Current TV, of course, covering and carrying our nationally syndicated radio show on a simulcast. But I got to tell you, with all of those different great organizations I've worked for, I have never felt that so totally free and so totally independent in terms of broadcasting the news of the day as I do here on Free Speech TV, because Free Speech TV, that's what it is. I mean, it's a progressive voice channel, 24/7, totally independent. As you know, no government funding and no corporate funding and no big donor pressure at all. Totally independent. And how do we do it? Well, that's thanks to you and to your support. We couldn't do without it. And that's why we turn to you once or twice a year to ask you to first of all, to thank you for being so generous, and then to ask you to help out again as much as you can. And there's some premiums that we can offer this time around, maybe to make it more attractive for you to dig in and help us out. If you can help us with just $10 a month, $120 a year, we'll send you a Bill Press mug and a pound of coffee. For $240, that mug, that coffee, and a French press. That's just $20 a month. For $30 a month, $360 a year, a mug, a coffee, the French press, and you'll participate in what we're calling Voices of the People. You and I will have a 5-minute phone conversation about whatever issue you want to talk about or issues you want to talk about, and we'll put all those together and we'll air them on our show as Voices of the People. You can be part of that. And if somehow you can make your way to Washington, D.C. and send $1,000 to Free Speech TV, make your way to Washington, Carol and I will take you out to dinner and bring you into the studio the next morning to watch the show. However, whatever level you can help out, please give us a call at 877-378-8669 or go to the website freespeech.org. Help as much as you can, and thank you for being so generous and allowing us to do a great job with you every day.
Connect with The Bill Press Show on Twitter. Follow us at BP Show and tweet using the hashtag WatchingBP. This is The Bill Press Show.
Hey, what do you say? 33 minutes after the hour. It's Tuesday, September 16, and thank you for joining us here. And welcome to Washington, D.C., and our nation's capital on Capitol Hill. That's where we are, and nobody knows Capitol Hill better than Arthur Delaney. He's there. You can't be here in Washington every day. Arthur's there fighting for you, middle-class Americans, from the Huffington Post. Hello, Arthur. What's going on?
Good morning.
Yeah.
Great to be here. What's going on? Great weather.
You have your Rick Perry glasses on. All right. So
looking forward to
what's
foliage.
your deal? We are in the middle of a conversation here with a lot of our callers. Don't forget, you can join us. We're talking about Adrian Peterson, 866-55-PRESS. Now, you are pregnant.
No, that's not correct.
Let me tell you something.
My wife is pregnant.
Okay.
I made that mistake once. We are pregnant. No, we are not.
I am not pregnant.
All right. You and your wife are expecting your first child, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
This is an important conversation, all right, that we're talking about. Adrian Peterson is saying, yeah, I beat my kid. Yeah, I picked up a switch and beat my kid, but that's just stern parenting. My parents did it to me. Look, I turned out all right. That's what I do to my kid. And Charles Barkley says every black family in the South does this. So what's wrong with it?
Well, the kid
what are you being taught?
He had lacerations and stuff.
Yeah.
He had like open wounds for a week.
And overnight, we learned that this is the second child of his children that he's been accused of beating. The other had a lacerated head wound.
I think he's hitting those kids too hard and too much. And you know, if you're putting them in need of medical attention, that's very ridiculous.
The thing that gets me, right, is I don't agree with it, but I understand that there is a group of people out there that, you know, you get the belt, you get the switch, you get a SWAT, right? Like, I don't do that. I don't agree with it. But the fact that he crossed a line into lacerations and open wounds, and even still he says,
yeah,
it's bizarre.
That's okay.
But
like,
to
if he
me,
thinks that is the standard, that's a real problem.
But that's why I think you have to draw the line at no hitting at all.
But corporal punishment is not even an effective. You know, I've got all these baby books. It's not something that is intuitive to me, nor is it a good idea according to researchers. So I don't see why you should really have to put up with people doing it at all. Though you can't tell people we're going to force you to raise your kids and not spank them. But you can say, no, you cannot beat your children with an object that causes them to have like serious injuries. It's ridiculous.
No, I think you can say the first thing that you said. I mean, you should never strike your child ever, ever, ever. Not even just like a little bit, right? Just
don't do it at all.
Don't do it at all.
But in terms of getting police, I mean,
I agree with that. But he's got. Fortunately, there are some voices of sanity out there. We played yesterday. We play again. Chris Carter, who's now on ESPN. He was with the
Vikings. Adrian Peterson's team
with the Vikings. Who said this is BS? Right? His defense.
My mom did the best job she could do, raising 7 kids by herself. But there are thousands of things that I have learned since then that my mom was wrong.
Yes. Thank you.
It's the 21st century. My mom was wrong. She did the best she could, but she was wrong about some of that stuff she taught me.
Yeah.
And I promised my kids I won't teach that mess to them.
Yeah. So we've come along. Well, one would hope, right?
Yeah. And Adrian Peterson, he's getting so much credit because he admits no wrongdoing. He was saying I was instilling discipline, and people like the idea of discipline, but I think for some people talking about this case, there's a lower standard being set for someone else, because I don't think most people would agree with hitting their children till they bleed.
I would hope not. I
don't know, man. I think that there are people out there that think that that's normal, acceptable behavior.
I'm saying some of the people who are saying they're comfortable with what Adrian Peterson did because he didn't think it was wrong and he's disciplining his children. They wouldn't accept that for their own kids. There's this element of condescension to it that is not good.
Let's say hello to Susan out in Denver, Colorado. Hi, Susan.
Hi. I just wanted to say I think it's rather disgusting, everything that's going on with this situation, because it's just a vicious cycle of abuse between men and women and the children. And it's like Stockholm Syndrome. They get stuck in this cycle with violent men, and it's like they get rewarded with these high incomes, and that's the kids' heroes.
Yeah. I appreciate the call, Susan. It is, so you go from the Ray Rice situation and others, right, striking women, and then now to Adrian Peterson striking his children. And there are people out there who say, well, this is what guys do, right?
But is the implication that they're doing it because they're in the NFL? I think they'd be doing it no matter what.
That's a good question, but I think that we have seen that NFL players, there's a culture of violence in the NFL that goes from on the field to off the field, number one, and that they get away with it. And the NFL covers it up.
These cases have not been covered up.
The
problem with the Ray Rice case was that the discipline was too lenient, and then they sort of embarrassed.
What about the fact, Arthur, that they had the video of inside the elevator last April, and they did nothing about it until TMZ released one?
They did not do nothing.
Video.
They had already suspended him.
No.
And then they were a step behind the public outrage.
Sorry, you got your facts wrong. They had that video of inside the elevator long time ago. Nothing happened until the video came out of outside the elevator, and that's when they suspended.
Okay, and they had the video before that.
That's when they suspended him for 2 games. That's cover up.
That does sound like a cover-up. I was not aware of that chronology, but it's not like they're punching and hitting their kids. They're not lowering their shoulder and delivering, a football move to the children. I am skeptical that you can blame the sport for the bad behavior.
Well, let me mention there are 40. What was it? I had that number yesterday. 40%. Not 40%. Just 1 second.
While you're looking for that, one thing I just wanted to mention is I don't know that it's fair to blame the sport as it is to blame the system that they come up in. And by that I mean you have these college football players who come on and they are under scholarship, so the university feels like they need to protect their investment. And if they get in some kind of trouble, they hide it and they cover it up. And then these guys learn that they can get away with stuff. And then if they are gifted enough to move on into the NFL or to a professional level, that behavior usually just continues because, again, they've invested a lot of time and money in these players, and they don't want to see them go to jail or watch their stock fall. It's all about business. And Roger Goodell has made a lot of money for these NFL owners. And Jerry Jones from the Cowboys says right now Roger Goodell has 100% support from the owners. So you have to admit that Roger Goodell has bungled the Ray Rice situation.
Horribly.
I think that has been a total he screwed it up from top to bottom. And yet, even though in the face of this awful domestic violence case, he still has 100% support from the NFL owners.
Well, what does getting rid of him even do? He is just a shield for these 32 other dudes.
Yeah.
Who he'll take the fall for all of them. That's his job. If he keeps his job, he keeps his job. If he loses his job, that's his job too. I don't understand what satisfaction do you get from watching him lose his job
because
and not the owners.
It's just like Chris Christie with the bridge. Made the analogy the other day. He created a culture in which it was, we're going to get even with anybody who doesn't, and we'll do anything with anybody who doesn't endorse the governor. Roger Goodell created a culture where they will do anything to protect these NFL players. They have a security team of hundreds of people whose job is basically to, if any of these players get in trouble, they swoop in right away and either get the charges dropped or reduced or kill any publicity about it. It's, what is it? Protect the
shield. Protecting the shield.
Protect the shield. Here's the number I want to give you. This is from the USA Today keeps stats on this. One out of every 40 NFL players is arrested every year. You could not, 1 out of 40. You couldn't say that about cops. You couldn't say that about journalists. You couldn't say that about teachers. You couldn't say that about insurance salesmen. I mean, it's something about.
It's a high rate of arrest.
It's a high rate.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
I do think one just quick thing on that. I do think, Arthur, you bring up a good point in that Roger Goodell is speaking for the owners, right? So while Roger Goodell might not have created this environment, I think he enables it. He speaks directly for the owners, and if there's a problem, instead of covering it up and having this squad of people out there to protect the players and to keep them out of trouble, an NFL commissioner said, "You know what? This is your problem."
In one
to
phrase,
the owners, make the owners deal with it.
In one phrase, I think Maureen Dowd summed it up. Roger Goodell is an enabler of men who beat women. Period.
That's fair. I think that's fair.
Yeah. So.
But what you get rid of him? That does not change anything.
It could. It
should. There's more accountability for the next guy.
I think it sends a strong message, and I think you'd see the NFL come up with a much tougher policy and zero tolerance for either women abuse or child abuse. Arthur Delaney here with us. Good conversation. Join the conversation at 866-55-PRESS. We'll be right back.
This is the Bill Press Show.
At Earth Justice, we defend the environment in the courtroom. Join our fight. When you take a seat, you take a stand. Earth Justice, because the Earth needs a good lawyer.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
Tune into Free Speech TV for Democracy Now!, a national, independent, award-winning news program bringing you people and perspectives rarely seen on corporate media.
I probably would make a time machine.
I would make medicine for the sick.
I'd probably invent something new.
我会赢到5个总冠军戒指。
If I could have an extra 5 years to live.
You said 5, right?
5 years. It's a long time.
I would try to fix everything I did bad.
I would bring my uncle back because I miss him very much.
I would get more hamsters.
I would probably want to go looking for dark matter.
I think I'd go looking for aliens.
If I could live an extra 5 years. I was thinking about making like a helicopter, like a wooden helicopter, but I don't have any wood.
I want to go check out the moon sometime.
I'd probably teach my sister not to hate tuna.
I would try and invent a machine that lets you run at light speed.
If I had 5 more extra years to live.
I would be the boss of all the chipmunks.
Eu cantaria na frente de 1 milhão de pessoas.
I don't really know. I think I'd do anything. Why are you asking me that?
In the Congress and around the country. I saw on Huffington Post, Republicans today are upset about people buying pot with food stamps, or what's the story?
No. It's in Colorado where they have these newly licensed businesses that sell marijuana.
Right.
They've got ATMs in them. The National Review, conservative paper, did a records request. How many times has a government-issued debit card for the Temporary Assistance for Needy Families program been used to withdraw cash benefits at an ATM in a pot shop since these new pot shops existed? And it turns out 64 times. Now, this doesn't mean the person turned around and took that cash and bought pot with it, but close
probably.
enough. Yeah, it's. I think it's reasonable to
Yeah.
ask how they then spent that money. So, in response to this, Republicans in Congress immediately introduced a new bill that is called the Preserving Welfare for Needs, Not Weed Act, and they're going to vote on it today. They gotta fund the government. They gotta do something related to war, and they gotta do this and several other sort of symbolic bills.
Well, first of all, 64 times. It sounds like maybe a lot. To me, it doesn't sound like a lot. How many transactions were there on these ATMs total? Do we know?
No. The government doesn't know. The government only knows how many times its cards got used there.
I would imagine it's been, I don't know, almost a year now that we've had legal pot. It was certainly in April because Alan St. Clair was out there in April.
Yeah.
Maybe
it was the
all right,
beginning
so
of this year.
it's been 8 months, let's say.
So let people buy weed with their welfare. But anyway,
no, as far as I'm concerned, yeah, but
it's medicine.
But
no, I see why they're doing. There's a reasonable element to this. Also,
well, wait. Here's what gets me about it: is they can't do anything about climate change. They can't do anything about immigration reform. They can't do anything about the minimum wage or extending unemployment insurance. They're not even going to hold a vote on whether or not we ought to do airstrikes in Syria to authorize a president to do that. Right.
Total
they can't do
abdication.
any of that.
No.
But they're going to pass a bill which would prevent somebody from using a government-issued debit card in a pot store in Colorado. Now, that's why we elect members of Congress.
There are two reasons.
That's why we pay them $175 freaking dollars a year.
This is easy, and this will pass because they previously.
It'll pass because the Democrats
they won't fight it.
CS as a Republican.
They did this before. They banned. Well, they did this for strip clubs and casinos and liquor stores in 2012. There was no debate because Democrats just, okay, fine. Go ahead and do that. And they just didn't anticipate the pot shops then. So now they're coming back and basically amending the 2012
Oh,
bill.
man, I feel better as an American.
Yeah, right?
I will sleep better tonight knowing that Congress is going to prevent somebody on welfare from buying
confidential
pot in Colorado.
to Colorado, if you're on welfare, you can still use your welfare to buy pot there after this passes, if it passes. You just go to the ATM that is outside of the pot shop. Turn around with your cash and go into the pot shop. This bill doesn't stop that. But it's just the association is unacceptable.
This bill just stops stupid people from directly doing it.
Sure.
Like if you're smart enough to figure out how to get cash. It's
By the way,
not a
the
problem.
person who introduced this is Dave Reichart from Washington State. I guess he doesn't want this to,
Well, they've got the marijuana business there as well, but their Colorado was the justification.
Total waste. And quickly before we run out of time, Scott Walker.
Scott
in
Walker
Wisconsin.
wants. This is similar.
This is
type
important
of
because
legislation.
Mary Burke's going to beat Scott Walker. So
That's why he's doing this unexpectedly close race. Mary Burke could win, and this dreamboat Republican governor could flame out after one huge term.
Yeah.
And he's saying, you know what? I don't want people who I want to drug test people on food stamps and unemployment benefits.
This is the whole thing of you can't, if you use your food stamp, pee in a bottle before you use your
Pee in
food
a cup.
stamp. Right?
Prove you're not on drugs. Now, you can drug test people on welfare, on TANF, but you actually, federal law doesn't let you do this. And Scott Walker, unlike many Republicans who have proposed it around the country, he already knows that, and he immediately said, I welcome I want to fight with the Obama administration about it. So the Burke campaign was, well, look, you're just campaigning here. But Scott Walker knows what he's doing. Overwhelming public support for these policies. Poll after poll shows it's up above 60%. Up above 70% if you drug test members of Congress and CEOs, but still very popular idea.
Isn't it amazing to me how much time these politicians spend trying to make it more difficult for people on welfare or on food stamps or the poor, basically?
The justification
while
is
they let the wealthiest people just run amok with whatever wealth they've got and no restrictions.
The comment section on these stories is always somebody saying, well, I have to pee in a cup for my job, so I don't understand why someone on getting free money shouldn't have to do it. And that it makes it seem like it's a spite-based policy.
Yeah, it is.
There isn't a real policy reason. It's an emotional, spiteful reason in many instances.
All right. Well, either we wouldn't know about this without Huffington Post and HuffPost Hill, and that's your job, and you do a great job. And thanks for coming in this morning.
Thank you for having me.
HuffingtonPost.com. We'll be right back.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Hey, friends and neighbors, take a little time out now for just a word about Free Speech TV, how important it is, and how much we depend on your help. I hate to tell you this, but I've been around this radio and television business for a long time now, starting out with KABC TV in Los Angeles and KABC Talk Radio, moving on the radio front over to KFI Radio, and on TV over to KCOP Radio, and then bouncing back here to Washington, D.C., 6 years on CNN at Crossfire, and then a couple of years at MSNBC with Pat Buchanan on Buchanan and Press, and then Current TV, of course, covering and carrying our nationally syndicated radio show on a simulcast. But I got to tell you, with all of those different great organizations I've worked for, I have never felt that so totally free and so totally independent in terms of broadcasting the news of the day as I do here on Free Speech TV, because Free Speech TV, that's what it is. I mean, it's a progressive voice channel, 24/7, totally independent. As you know, no government funding and no corporate funding and no big donor pressure at all. Totally independent. And how do we do it? Well, that's thanks to you and to your support. We couldn't do without it. And that's why we turn to you once or twice a year to ask you to first of all, to thank you for being so generous, and then to ask you to help out again as much as you can. And some premiums that we can offer this time around, maybe to make it more attractive for you to dig in and help us out. If you can help us with just $10 a month, $120 a year, we'll send you a Bill Press mug and a pound of coffee. For $240, that mug, that coffee, and a French press. That's just $20 a month. For $30 a month, $360 a year, a mug, a coffee, the French press, and you'll participate in what we're calling Voices of the People. You and I will have a 5-minute phone conversation about whatever issue you want to talk about or issues you want to talk about, and we'll put all those together and we'll air them on our show as Voices of the People. You can be part of that. And if somehow you can make your way to Washington, D.C. and send $1,000 to Free Speech TV, make your way to Washington, Carol and I will take you out to dinner and bring you into the studio the next morning to watch the show. However, whatever level you can help out, please give us a call at 877-378-8669 or go to the website freespeech.org. Help as much as you can, and thank you for being so generous and allowing us to do a great job with you every day.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Hey, that's only half of the Tuesday team. Arthur Delaney, the other half. Igor Volski here with us from Think Progress at the top of the hour. And Peter will be tweeting out. I just want to mention we talked a lot about Ray Rice and Adrian Peterson, particularly in the last hour. In this hour, my column for The Hill today is that the NFL actually makes Congress look good. For once, there's one group that's more scandal-ridden than the United States Congress. And we'll be tweeting that out, or you can check it out at thehill.com. And we'll be back with Igor Volski.
This is the Bill Press Show.
All right. I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay. So who's going to do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
Hey, what do you say, friends and neighbors? Good to see you today. I want to take a little time out from the news of the day to talk about something very, very, very important. And we've got for you today, well, you've heard all about the Ice Bucket Challenge, right? That the most successful fundraising effort, I think, ever in history to raise money to find a cure for that dreadful disease, ALS. Well, we've got something a little different than the Ice Bucket Challenge and maybe a little more comforting. It's not the Ice Bucket Challenge today. It's the Coffee Challenge, yeah. And we also want the Coffee Challenge, to raise money for Free Speech TV to be the most successful fundraising effort ever for Free Speech TV, especially here on the Bill Press program. Now, this is so much easier. You don't have to get all a bucket of ice water over your head. You don't even, of course, you don't have to have hot coffee poured over your head. Here's how it works. You help us at Free Speech TV, and we will send you tons of coffee to enjoy, depending on how much you can help, of course. Now, I don't have to tell you why we need your help. Free Speech TV, the only truly independent cable television network out there at all, and the only truly progressive television network out there. And the only way we can stay independent is no government money, no corporate money, no foundation money. It is all just your donations that keep us going. And look what you get for your dollar. You get this great lineup of progressive hosts every day, me and Tom Hartman, Stephanie Miller, Amy Goodman, and others all day long, bringing you the news of the day with our commentary, our insights, and of course, your calls and your comments as well. So for the coffee challenge, if you can help us with just $10 a month, $120, we'll send you a pound of coffee and a Bill Press mug. If you can help us with $240 or just $20 a month, we'll send you that mug and a pound of coffee and a French press. How about it? To put it all together. For $30 a month, $360, the mug, the coffee, the French press, of course, and something very, very special, you'll be part of what we're calling Voice of the People. You and I will have a 5-minute telephone conversation. We'll record all those telephone conversations of people at the $360 level. We'll put them together and play them on the air, your chance to become a national celebrity with me here on The Bill Press Show. That's for $30 a month or $360. And, of course, if you have the means and are willing to send $1,000 to Free Speech TV, God bless you. You make your way to Washington. Carol and I will take you out to dinner and invite you into the studio the next morning to watch the show. Help us as much as you can. Join the Coffee Challenge at 1-877-378-8669 or go to our website, freespeech.org. All of us here at Free Speech need your help, and thank you for your help.
What gets you into college? Good SAT scores? High GPA? Lots of extracurriculars?
Sure, but what you really need is money.
If you don't have the cash, you'll need a loan.
And we mean huge student loans because the cost of college has risen 1,000% in the last 30 years.
This means big money for the banks that collect fees and interest.
Now, millions of young people are starting their adult lives with an average of $29,000 of loans on their backs.
Altogether, we're talking $1.2 trillion in student debt.
And more people are finding it impossible to pay them back. Welcome to the student debt crisis.
The increasing demand for higher education and cuts to state funding gave colleges a huge incentive to keep inflating prices.
I graduated about a year ago, currently in $35,000 of debt.
I am in debt about like $25,000.
I owe $23,000.
I owe over $50,000 in student loans.
38.8 million Americans owe money on a student loan. And the biggest names in banking are making huge profits off the booming student loan industry. Sallie Mae, the largest provider of private student loans, made $949 million last year.
They only give you about 6 months to look for a job. You have to start paying back the loan. It's very pressuring, especially nowadays. It's very hard to find a job.
Over half of the students graduating in 2012 could not find a decent paying job.
They either had low-wage jobs or unpaid internships or were unemployed altogether.
So you can't make the payments. You start incurring late fees, which makes the loan even harder to pay off.
And it stays with you for years, even decades.
Right now, a third of the people who started repaying their loans are delinquent or in default.
That's 13.7 million people, more than the populations of Chicago, New York, and San Francisco combined.
Worse, it's not just the borrowers who are in trouble. Many loans require co-signers.
So if the student is unable to pay, that co-signer, a father, a mother, or a grandparent, is now on the hook.
Even a grandparent's Social Security benefits can be garnished to pay the loan.
We should have an answer to this. If you get really behind in your car payment or your credit cards, you can file for bankruptcy.
But Congress has made it nearly impossible to discharge student loans through bankruptcy.
Big institutions make big profits while students try to make ends meet under crushing debt.
Is this how we want our education system to work?
The whole point of going to college is to get the career you want, but lately I've been discouraged because no one can afford school. You get a job just to pay off your student loans.
We need higher education, not higher debt.
Sign up to end the student debt crisis at higherednotdebt.org.
And up the fight against Ebola, going to Atlanta today to the CDC and announcing a whole new American initiative to help fight that horrible disease in Western Africa. And that's just one of the things going on today. We'll tell you all about it. Welcome to the program, and thank you for joining us. We're coming to you live from Washington, D.C., our nation's capital, and our studio on Capitol Hill. Here with you to bring you up to date on the news of the day from Washington, again, around the country, around the globe. And we need a lot of help this morning. There's so much news. Igor Volski has volunteered to come in, as he does every Tuesday. He's managing editor of Think Progress, part of the team here. Hello, Igor.
Good morning.
Prince Igor,
yes,
we should
please.
say. I almost
kept
forgot.
my royal title in
That's
there.
right. The Igorians insist that we call you Prince Igor. Joining our team here with Peter Ogburn and Lisa Murphy. Hello, hello.
Hey now.
Hey, good morning.
Yes, Alicia Cruz is back on the job, ready to take your calls at 866-55 Press, and Cyprian Bolding here, our videographer, all keeping us looking good on the video stream and on Free Speech TV. Everything good, Igor?
Everything's very good. Enjoying the weather. It's beautiful
Isn't it
out.
great?
Even closer to Halloween now, by the way, in case you're keeping score. So it's just a beautiful fall morning. Why are you laughing?
For some reason, I hadn't thought about Halloween yet. It's only the 16th. Is this your
favorite holiday?
The 16th.
Yeah, guys, we talked about this last week.
Oh, did we?
God, keep up. My fans know. Yeah.
By the way, we're not joking about the Igors. We just had a tweet that just wanted to make sure that we knew that Honey Bear Kelly says you're her favorite Igor.
Well, there are several in the business. Yeah. So thank you,
Igor.
Honey Bear.
You're my favorite Igor too, so don't get it wrong.
I don't know any other Igor, so you're my favorite.
I'll introduce you to some. Yeah, there's this other Igor out there.
Right.
At a rival publication.
I'll tell you, one of my other favorite, I noticed on Think Progress, you had a story that you wrote yesterday about Senator Lindsey Graham from South Carolina, who says if we don't do something about send American combat troops, boots on the ground in Iraq, he says, we will all get killed back here at home. Now, I don't think that's fair, Igor, because I don't think that you could ever accuse Lindsey Graham of exaggerating at all to make a point.
No, he's straight shooter.
No, he is. Yeah. As Jon Stewart pointed out last night, I mean, no, not Lindsey Graham. He would not exaggerate about anything.
Of course, we have to take we're all gonna die. We have to take it very seriously because of Lindsey Graham's reputation for even-keeled understatement. Like when he was talking about not letting people have assault weapons.
If my family was in the crosshairs of gangs that were roaming around neighborhoods in New Orleans or any other location, the deterrent effect of an AR-15 to protect my family, I think, is greater than a double-barrel shotgun.
On balancing the budget.
All this talk about fear, it's real. We're on an unsustainable path when it comes to our nation.
On Iran's nuclear program.
We're walking down the road to Armageddon.
The poor man lives his entire life trapped in the Blair Witch Project. For God's sakes, I've seen chihuahuas in handbags who are less fretful and shaking.
It's true.
This is true.
I mean, he had a meltdown on Sunday. A meltdown. He was physically shaking.
Everything for him is Armageddon.
Everything.
It's the end of the world.
Literally Armageddon.
This is literally, yeah. I mean, he is Mr. Chicken Little. I'm telling you. But and you would almost want to laugh out loud. You know, well, we do obviously. Yeah. But when he's giving a speech on the floor of the Senate, or whatever, it's always so over the top.
It's such fear of everything.
Yeah.
Poor man. What is he so scared
Someone fetch me
of?
my fainting couch.
That's it. What do you expect from South Carolina? At any rate, it is Igor Volski here for this half hour. Kyle Kondik from works with Larry Sabato at the Center for American. I'm sorry, Center for American Progress.
You know something I don't? He's coming over.
The Center for Politics at the University of Virginia. And a little bit later, Terry O'Neill, president of the National Organization for Women. But first, Peter.
This is the Full Court Press.
Just a couple of other stories making news. So you've seen these golf tournaments where if you hit a hole in one, you win a prize, right?
Yeah.
They do these things. It's usually a car. You win a sort of a car if you hit a hole in one on a par 3. So this past weekend, the KLM Open on the European Tour, Andy Sullivan, the golfer, he hit a hole in one, the par 3 15th hole, and that hole was sponsored by Egor Space Expedition. So what does he win? He wins a trip to space.
Yeah, right.
Oh, wow.
He hit a hole in one, and instead of a car or something or a vacation, he wins a trip to space. It's valued at $95,000. And the CEO said, with this prize, quote, "We wish to create awareness among the public that space is now also accessible for everyone."
What if he doesn't want to go?
Well, for those that are really good at golf, primarily.
Right. Or have 95 GER laying around that they could drop on a space trip. Yeah, that's a good question. What if he doesn't want to go? I mean, I guess he's sort of locked into
he does now.
If you're looking for a job, we may have the job for you, according to BuzzFeed. Rapper Waka Flocka Flame posted on... Real name. His name is Waka Flocka Flame. He posted on...
His mother named him
Well, that's not his Christian name. This is his rap
All
name.
right.
He put on Instagram...
Peter, then it's not his real name.
Well, that's the name he goes by.
Okay.
Everyone was laughing like I made it up. It's his name he goes by.
I go by Igor. It's no less weird.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. So this rapper, he puts on Instagram, he's hiring a blunt roller. Someone to roll his blunts for him because I guess he's smoking so much weed now he can't do it himself. And the job pays $50,000 a year.
Oh my goodness!
He's not kidding.
No what about health benefits?
Vacation? Guaranteed you won't have glaucoma. He says, "I'm paying $50,000 a year for a blunt roller. Hashtag I can roll." So he's asking people to apply online and on Instagram. So you too, if you can roll a blunt, you can do it for $50,000 for Waka Flocka Flame. Waka Flocka Flame.
Yeah, is there a quota? That's what I want to know.
The job.
I want to know more.
You might get carpal tunnel
do
too.
Do what you love, and you'll never work a day in your life. That's what I have to say.
You can buy a lot of pot with $50,000 too.
Yeah. And we go to Melbourne, Australia, where a couple had a goldfish that they'd had for a couple years, and it turns out that this goldfish had a tumor, a life-threatening tumor. Okay.
Oh God.
What do you do?
I don't know where this is going.
You have to save the fish.
What do you do? The couple saved the fish. He's 10 years old. They put him into surgery. They put him under. They had him operated on. They put him under general anesthetic. They took him on. They took the tumor out, put him in a bucket of water, and he's A-okay. He's fine. But
what did it cost?
Tens of thousands of dollars for the surgery for a goldfish.
You
a 10-year-old
goldfish for $1.
Yeah. Apparently, George the goldfish. Now, the doctor says that this goldfish is expected to live for another 20 years. Goldfish live that long?
Oh my goodness!
Is that
koi? They're called koi.
Are they
that size at that age?
But they're not. It's not a big koi. It's like a tiny goldfish that they keep in a bowl in their house.
The joy that fish must bring them.
I'm trying to remember the name of the movie. We all remember
Finding Nemo.
No, where they ate the goldfish.
Oh, Fish Called Wanda.
That
A
Fish Called Wanda.
Yeah.
Fish Called Wanda.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Excellent movie.
That's
hilarious.
That's what they should have done with
George. Exactly. Poor George.
Oh, how do we get off of goldfish, Peter?
Sorry.
All right.
I just report the news.
You decide.
Big stories. I report. You decide.
Should have stopped at the blunt roller. I feel like that would have been a good, smooth transition. Bill has one, I'm sure, for that.
I'm lost.
How do you think I got hired for this job?
Well, I had my suspicions.
We move into the serious note of the day. I was so glad you picked up on this about Rand Paul, because if there's anybody, it's like the chameleon Rand Paul.
Yeah.
Right? Changing his stripes, changing his colors on almost every issue.
It's
as he moves toward running for president.
I mean,
in
it's kind of
2016.
remarkable. And there's just, in this issue in particular, this foreign policy arena, there's such a stark contrast to what was going on last year. Because you'll remember when the president asked congressional authority to strategically bomb certain stockpiles of chemical weapons in Syria, Rand Paul led the congressional opposition. And he had some real concerns, some real questions about, will American intervention in the Middle East destabilize the region even further? What will it mean for Israel? Who are these rebels, these moderate rebels who are going to be helped by this action? Can we trust them? Do they have ties to Islamists? How wide and how involved will our action become? Will this lead to a greater war?
His
those
classic.
All of those questions.
By the way, echoing his father.
On those issues. And if you think all of those questions still very much apply to this situation, we don't really know who the moderate folks are in Syria or Iraq. We've identified maybe some of them, but there's no unified leadership or structure. We don't necessarily think that the Iraqi security forces are able to combat ISIS on their own. We're not really sure what the international coalition, global wide coalition of countries looks like that's going to help us with ISIS. We don't really know what's going to happen to Assad or who fills the vacuum if he is pushed out. So all of the questions really remain, and in some cases, they're even more pertinent now because we're talking about a much larger action today than we were a year ago. I mean, this is a sustained campaign of 3 to 4 years, and frankly, Congress hasn't been asking too many key questions about how is this going to play out. And neither has Rand Paul, for that matter.
But he's all for it now.
Well, he went on Fox News yesterday, Bill, and to my astonishment, when the host asked him, if Obama brings this question to Congress, now this is the larger authorization, not that Syria package, not the $500 million, but the larger authorization for action, will you vote for it? And he said, yeah. And I thought to myself, well, why wouldn't you even first have a hearing or a congressional discussion or debate before committing on television that you're going to vote for this thing? And I thought, what an evolution from a guy who was anti-interventionist, isolationist, who thought, in last year, 2013, he was talking about diplomacy and trying to figure out if you could sit down with the Syrians or the Russians and see if you can come up with a deal. He took credit for what eventually happened was when the weapons through the Putin-brokered arrangement were eventually destroyed. He took credit for that diplomacy. Now to say, without any real debate or discussion, that he would vote for it, I thought, my goodness, this is a guy who's really looking seriously probably at 2016. And it's even more devastating because 3 weeks ago he was on Meet the Press. He called Hillary Clinton a war hawk and said she's really eager for another war in the Middle East and that Americans are tired of war. So if that's the case, why is he voting for this thing now? 3 weeks, I guess, can make a big difference in the life of a politician.
What's interesting to me is, Rand Paul, remember, was the Tea Party candidate that Mitch McConnell opposed in the primary because he thought it was too extreme.
And then he was. Now he's not.
Exactly. Well, that sums it up. Yeah. But look at the contrast with Ted Cruz. Then he was, and he still is. So the two of them have taken different paths to 2016. Rand Paul is trying to become more establishment. He's still out there on some issues. I mean, like on drones, I think he's great.
Yeah.
Right? But, I mean, so he's not a centrist by any means, but he's really trimming his sails, if you will. And as you point out, this is the number one way on foreign policy. Whereas Ted Cruz is as extreme to far right as he was when he first ran for office.
He's been silent on the Syria question too. And Peter King has a great quote in today's Washington Post. He says it looks like Rand Paul and Ted Cruz are finally entering adolescence and moving into adulthood this year because they're not talking about shutting down the government and they're staying quiet on this whole Syria thing. Right. So from his perspective, it's great.
Yeah, there we go, Rand Paul. And you know what? I have to tell you, if you look at the potential Republican candidate. I think they have a weak bench for 2016. But Rand Paul has as good a chance as anybody else, I think, of getting a nomination.
I mean, he keeps
today.
moving towards the middle and staying, libertarian on the issues where there's overlap with Democrats, things like marijuana decriminalization, and that's where you start kind of peeling off some of the votes. Voter ID, if he continues moderating his view there, again.
On the NSA, on the CIA, on the intelligence agencies, and on the drones, spot on. Right. Yeah, so
it's a real kind of political threat, and of a guy who isn't afraid to, on at least some issues, still stick with an orthodoxy that appeals to the non-traditional Republican voter.
And certainly more credible than crazy Rick Perry, who has suggested that the black-hooded executioner from ISIS actually has crossed the border, the southern border, from Mexico into the United States, or may have.
Yeah. And also, he's a relatively fresh face, and people, I think, like that in politics.
All Rand Paul now, he needs to get Rick Perry's glasses.
Oh, well, he's an optometrist, so
right.
22 pairs of those.
22 minutes after the hour with Igor Volski here on a round of issues here on a Tuesday, September 16. Join the conversation, Rand Paul. Do you agree that he's becoming coming more to the center and maybe a more serious candidate for president? 866-55-PRESS.
This is the Bill Press Show.
What the frack?
What the frack?
What the frack?
What the frack?
President Obama, are you fracking kidding me?
Reopen the EPA studies.
In Texas, Wyoming, and Pennsylvania.
Fracking pollutes our oceans.
Fracking poisons our water.
Fracking makes climate change worse.
Fracking relies on toxic chemicals that cause cancer. Ban fracking now.
Ban fracking now.
Go on. Ban it.
Ban fracking now.
Please.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
Hey, friends and neighbors, take a little time out now for just a word about free speech TV, how important it is, and how much we depend on your help. I hate to tell you this, but I've been around this radio and television business for a long time now, starting out with KABC TV in Los Angeles and KABC Talk Radio, moving on the radio front over to KFI Radio, and on TV over to KCOP Radio, and then bouncing back here to Washington, D.C., 6 years on CNN at Crossfire, and then a couple of years at MSNBC with Pat Buchanan on Buchanan and Press, and then Current TV, of course, covering and carrying our nationally syndicated radio show on a simulcast. But I got to tell you, with all of those different great organizations I've worked for, I have never felt that so totally free and so totally independent in terms of broadcasting the news of the day as I do here on Free Speech TV, because Free Speech TV, that's what it is. I mean, it's a progressive voice channel, 24/7, totally independent. As you know, no government funding and no corporate funding and no big donor pressure at all. Totally independent. And how do we do it? Well, that's thanks to you and to your support. We couldn't do without it. And that's why we turn to you once or twice a year to ask you to first of all, to thank you for being so generous, and then to ask you to help out again as much as you can. And there's some premiums that we can offer this time around, maybe to make it more attractive for you to dig in and help us out. If you can help us with just $10 a month, $120 a year, we'll send you a Bill Press mug and a pound of coffee. For $240, that mug, that coffee, and a French press. That's just $20 a month. For $30 a month, $360 a year, a mug, a coffee, the French press, and you'll participate in what we're calling Voices of the People. You and I will have a 5-minute phone conversation about whatever issue you want to talk about or issues you want to talk about, and we'll put all those together and we'll air them on our show as Voices of the People. You can be part of that. And if somehow you can make your way to Washington, D.C. and send $1,000 to Free Speech TV, make your way to Washington, Carol and I will take you out to dinner and bring you into the studio the next morning to watch the show. However, whatever level you can help out, please give us a call at 877-378-8669 or go to the website freespeech.org. Help as much as you can, and thank you for being so generous and allowing us to do a great job with you every day.
This is the Bill Press Show.
26 minutes after the hour, Igor Volski here with us from Think Progress, Kyle Kondik from the Center for Politics in the next half hour. So, Igor, the Republicans say they want to reach out to women, and they believe in equal pay for women. We're the party that supports women. They didn't show that yesterday, huh?
Well, it's all theoretical, these things they believe. In practice, they don't vote for the right kind of bills. This is the fourth time since, I believe, 2011, that Republicans have voted down this Paycheck Fairness Act, which would prohibit employers from retaliating against employees who share their pay information, would require employers to justify the pay gap and ensure that it's not because of gender. And Democrats, of course...
And would guarantee women make the same as men for the same work. Right?
Democrats have been trying, to kind of make this an issue in the midterms. They've, of course, been overrun by events in ISIS in Ukraine and everywhere else. But this was kind of part of that effort going into the midterms.
Paycheck Fairness Act
to show the contrast between the two parties. It not only did it not get a final vote, it didn't even move to a final vote. It was defeated on what's known as the cloture vote. And here we are again.
Mitch McConnell.
He promised he's not going to do this.
Filibuster
Why
again.
are we surprised?
Right. Republicans unanimously block equal pay bill. I mean, they can't help themselves almost, right?
No, they say it's bad for business and hiring. It will discourage hiring, they claim.
Yeah, right. Oh, yeah. God forbid we pay women the same as men. Igor Volski, good to see you, my friend. Thanks for coming in again. Okay, and we'll be back and talk politics with Kyle Kondik.
This is the Bill Press Show.
At Earth Justice, we defend the environment in the courtroom. Join our fight. When you take a seat, you take a stand. Earth Justice, because the Earth needs a good lawyer.
Hey, what do you say, friends and neighbors? Good to see you today. I want to take a little time out from the news of the day to talk about something very, very, very important. And we've got for you today, well, you've heard all about the Ice Bucket Challenge, right? That the most successful fundraising effort, I think, ever in history to raise money to find a cure for that dreadful disease, ALS. Well, we've got something a little different than the Ice Bucket Challenge and maybe a little more comforting. It's not the Ice Bucket Challenge today. It's the Coffee Challenge, yeah. And we also want the Coffee Challenge, to raise money for Free Speech TV to be the most successful fundraising effort ever for Free Speech TV, especially here on the Bill Press program. Now, this is so much easier. You don't have to get all a bucket of ice water over your head. You don't even, of course, you don't have to have hot coffee poured over your head. Here's how it works. You help us at Free Speech TV, and we will send you tons of coffee to enjoy, depending on how much you can help, of course. Now, I don't have to tell you why we need your help. Free Speech TV, the only truly independent cable television network out there at all, and the only truly progressive television network out there. And the only way we can stay independent is no government money, no corporate money, no foundation money. It is all just your donations that keep us going. And look what you get for your dollar. You get this great lineup of progressive hosts every day, me and Tom Hartman, Stephanie Miller, Amy Goodman, and others all day long, bringing you the news of the day with our commentary, our insights, and of course, your calls and your comments as well. So for the coffee challenge, if you can help us with just $10 a month, $120, we'll send you a pound of coffee and a Bill Press mug. If you can help us with $240 or just $20 a month, we'll send you that mug and a pound of coffee and a French press. How about it? To put it all together. For $30 a month, $360, the mug, the coffee, the French press, of course, and something very, very special, you'll be part of what we're calling Voice of the People. You and I will have a 5-minute telephone conversation. We'll record all those telephone conversations of people at the $360 level. We'll put them together and play them on the air, your chance to become a national celebrity with me here on The Bill Press Show. That's for $30 a month or $360. And, of course, if you have the means and are willing to send $1,000 to Free Speech TV, God bless you. You make your way to Washington. Carol and I will take you out to dinner and invite you into the studio the next morning to watch the show. Help us as much as you can. Join the Coffee Challenge at 1-877-378-8669 or go to our website, freespeech.org. All of us here at Free Speech need your help, and thank you for your help.
You wouldn't let money just blow out of your house. So when your AC or heater is on, make sure the doors, windows, and fireplace flue are shut tight. If you're headed out, turn down the AC or lower the heat by 10 degrees. And always keep your water heater set at 120. A little bit of common sense goes a long way. Get more great tips at energysaver.gov.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello, that's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
What the frack?
What the frack?
What the frack?
What the frack?
President Obama, are you fracking kidding me?
Reopen the EPA studies. In Texas, Wyoming, and Pennsylvania.
Fracking pollutes our oceans.
Fracking poisons our water.
Fracking makes climate change worse.
Fracking relies on toxic chemicals that cause cancer.
Ban fracking now.
Ban fracking now.
Go on. Ban it.
Ban fracking now.
Please.
Hey, it's 34 minutes after the hour. Thanks for being with us this Tuesday, September 16. And we are well into the midterm elections. Members of Congress chomping at the bit to, they've only been here back maybe 4 days, but now they want to get out of town again soon so they can get back to campaigning. Lots at stake, of course. 435 members of the House, all up for re-election. 36 Senate seats, and I think it's 36 governor seats.
That's right.
We'll find out for sure from Kondik, who is the managing editor of Crystal Ball at the Center for Politics, University of Virginia, working with the legendary Larry Sabato. Hey, Kyle, how are you?
Good morning.
Nice to see you.
Good to see you.
Thanks for coming back in. Let's start with the Senate, because that's what most people are talking about. The Senate polls are, all up and down, but There are a lot of close races out there.
Yeah, a lot of super close races. And what's interesting is that I feel like it's almost actually like the presidential race last year, where the national polls are actually like getting better for the Republicans.
Yeah.
But the state-by-state polls are actually, in a lot of places, actually looking pretty good for the Democrats. And particularly in the states that Obama won, or in the case of North Carolina, that Obama won in 2008 and narrowly lost in 2012. And so we're starting to see a little bit of movement sort of both ways. I think the Republicans might be doing better in the red state races, and the Democrats doing better in kind of the purple-blue state races. And I guess that's what you'd expect in a country that's so polarized.
Right. There are some possible surprises, right? Let's Kansas, for example. We haven't talked about that one before. Pardon me. Pat Roberts, longtime Republican senator, an establishment Republican, up for re-election, and in trouble.
You know, you had talked about how the members are back for this last little bit of the session before they go home to campaign. Pat Roberts' problem is that he likes being in Washington too much, it seems like, because he basically doesn't really live in Kansas. He lives in Alexandria, and residency has kind of been a big issue for him. It wasn't his primary that he won, but didn't really win in a very convincing manner. He faced a fairly weak opponent. And so Roberts is facing an interesting opponent, this guy named Greg Orman, who is a business guy and an independent. He's a person who actually considered running as a Democrat against Orman in 2008, but Orman also says that he's been kind of with both parties at various points of his life. And the interesting thing is that we're not exactly sure who Orman would caucus with if he got elected.
And this is where the Democrat dropped out,
right,
to give Orman a shot.
That's right. Yeah, it was a three-way race, and so there were polls, and Pat Roberts was well under 50%, but you know the sort of the anti-Roberts vote was being split among two people. Well, now there's just one person now. Chad Taylor, the old Democratic candidate, his name at this moment is still on the ballot. However, I think people will realize that he's not actually running, so he'll probably get some residual percentage of the vote. But polls indicate that even if he gets half dozen points or something like that, Orman could potentially still win. And it's important to remember that Kansas is a state that hasn't elected a Democratic senator since Franklin Roosevelt's has elected a Democratic senator since Franklin Roosevelt's first election.
Get out.
Yeah.
Right,
So
1933.
Yeah.
Whoa.
So that's Kansas is a very Republican state, but also one that, we're also seeing in the governor's race there, Sam Brownback, the Republican incumbent, is in a lot of trouble, partially because he's almost too conservative for Kansas, which I think is saying something. So,
all right. Now, another state that Democrats were not expected to win, but might have a shot, is Georgia, which I talked a little bit about, with Michelle Nunn. Made some news this week because Michelle Nunn is on leave as the head of the Points of Light Foundation, which, of course, was founded by Pappy Bush, George H.W. Bush, who this week endorsed the Republican in Georgia, not Michelle Nunn. But that's not a big surprise, is it?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I think George H.W. Bush has said good things about Michelle Nunn in the past, and I think Michelle Nunn has thought that that's been helpful to her. But you would expect the former Republican president to endorse the Republican in this race. I think it's still kind of an uphill climb for Nunn in Georgia, although it's certainly possible, maybe even likely, that we'll see a runoff there, and the runoff would not be until January 5th, I believe, which is after the new Congress meets. Yeah. So, we could be waiting.
Well, they had a runoff in the primary.
They did, yeah. And what's also interesting is that the governor's race there is very close. Nathan Deal, the Republican incumbent, versus Jason Carter, who's the grandson of the former president, Jimmy Carter. That runoff would be in December, so the runoffs wouldn't even be on the same date. It's very odd.
Yeah, that is strange. Mary Landrieu, you mentioned residence thing. Mary Landrieu has gotten a little bit of heat because she does have a home in Washington. Actually, a lot of members have houses in Washington and homes in their district as well.
I think it's probably better that than they sleep in their offises, which is kind of creepy, I think.
I totally agree. I think that is disgusting for them to sleep in their offices. We've talked about that a lot. And the latest ad, you may have seen that Crossroads, Karl Rove's organization, put out against Mary Landrieu that she's more of a Washingtonian than a Louisianan, or whatever that word is. includes me. I'm in this ad saying nice things about Mary Landrieu.
I have seen that,
and they're using it. I feel guilty about it. But she's a nice person, and she's done some nice things for Washington, D.C., and I was introducing her at a forum where I thanked her for that. But at any rate, what's Louisiana look like? She's a real scrapper. That could be a runoff too, right?
Yeah, that's another one that could go to runoff. That would be December 7th. I think it's a Saturday, so that's the notable thing about it. And so, actually, it would make sense maybe to hold all elections on a weekend, but they would actually do it for a runoff in Louisiana. What's interesting in all these states is that in the states of the runoffs,
still close.
Oh yeah, super close. Yeah, and it looks. The thing is, there's Louisiana is a strange system where there's no primary. Everybody competes who's running in the same race. They all compete on election day. If no one gets over 50, there's a runoff. And so you'll see polls where the head-to-head between Landrieu and Bill Cassidy, her main Republican opponent, is sort of neck and neck, or maybe even Cassidy is up slightly. But the actual election day is going to be Landrieu versus Cassidy versus a guy named Rob Maness, who's another Republican. Maness is going to take some percentage of the vote on election day.
From Cassidy.
And so Landrieu is almost certainly going to finish first on Election Day, but the question is whether she can avoid a runoff or not. That, at the moment, to me, seems unlikely, although I think there is a path for her to do that, but I don't think she's there right now.
Well, when I hear you speak about all these unlikelihoods, are we going to even know in November who controls the Senate?
Well, the first thing is that we're not going to know on November 4th because polls in Alaska don't close until 11 o'clock. I'm speaking on a technicality here, but
No, okay.
but so it's going to go deep into the night, I think, unless the Republicans have some sort of breakthrough and they win some states we don't expect them to at this point. But right now it looks very close, and so Alaska's a key race. That one will go into the morning.
So
probably.
We won't know until the November 5th. At earliest.
And then I would say the likelihood is probably for runoffs in both Georgia and Louisiana. I mentioned that the runoff in Louisiana would be in December. The runoff in Georgia would be in January. And then the other factor, we mentioned Greg Orman in Kansas. What if we don't know what party he's going to pick? What if the Senate that convenes is 50 Republicans, 49 Democrats, and he's the swing vote? There's some thought that maybe he would make some sort of deal, but he would extract heavy concessions, maybe force the Democrats to pick a new majority leader. I mean, there's all sorts of stuff going on here. And then there are other people who can switch parties
too.
Be
in that position of power.
Yeah.
I mean, seriously, to have that kind of clout, if you were a freshman Republican from Kansas, a freshman senator,
and for a guy who's basically a political newcomer.
I didn't mean to say Republican, but independent from Kansas, and a real newcomer who could control the Senate almost.
Yeah, and also Angus King, independent from Maine. I think he caucuses with the Democrats now. I think he is actually more of a Democrat than a Republican in his beliefs, but he's I think maybe it's possible that maybe he would switch parties. Like there's all sorts of stuff that could leave this up in the air even after the 114th Congress convenes. And so I think expecting the way it's looking now, expecting a very clean result on November 4th doesn't seem all that likely.
Wow. Yeah. And everybody's saying, well, at least we'll get it over with on November 4th. No, we may not get it over with. The Senate race is so important, but so are the governor's races around the country. Let's take a look at a couple of those when we come back. Kyle Kondik with us from the Center for Politics, University of Virginia. centerforpolitics.org and
/ crystal ball.
Is that it?
Yep.
/ crystal ball.
Yep.
But you can get to Kyle a lot quicker by giving us a call at 866-55-PRESS.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Hey, friends and neighbors, take a little time out now for just a word about Free Speech TV, how important it is, and how much we depend on your help. I hate to tell you this, but I've been around this radio and television business for a long time now, starting out with KABC TV in Los Angeles and KABC Talk Radio moving on the radio front over to KFI Radio, and on TV over to KCOP Radio, and then bouncing back here to Washington, D.C., 6 years on CNN at Crossfire, and then a couple of years at MSNBC with Pat Buchanan on Buchanan and Press, and then Current TV, of course, covering and carrying our nationally syndicated radio show on a simulcast. But I got to tell you, with all of those different great organizations I've worked for, I have never felt that so totally free and so totally independent in terms of broadcasting the news of the day as I do here on Free Speech TV, because Free Speech TV, that's what it is. I mean, it's a progressive voice channel, 24/7, totally independent. As you know, no government funding and no corporate funding and no big donor pressure at all. Totally independent. And how do we do it? Well, that's thanks to you and to your support. We couldn't do without it. And that's why we turn to you once or twice a year to ask you to first of all, to thank you for being so generous, and then to ask you to help out again as much as you can. And there's some premiums that we can offer this time around, maybe to make it more attractive for you to dig in and help us out. If you can help us with just $10 a month, $120 a year, we'll send you a Bill Press mug and a pound of coffee. For $240, that mug, that coffee, and a French press. That's just $20 a month. For $30 a month, $360 a year, a mug, a coffee, the French press, and you'll participate in what we're calling Voices of the People. You and I will have a 5-minute phone conversation about whatever issue you want to talk about or issues you want to talk about, and we'll put all those together and we'll air them on our show as Voices of the People. You can be part of that. And if somehow you can make your way to Washington, D.C. and send $1,000 to Free Speech TV, make your way to Washington, Carol and I will take you out to dinner and bring you into the studio the next morning to watch the show. However, whatever level you can help out, please give us a call at 877-378-8669 or go to the website freespeech.org. Help as much as you can, and thank you for being so generous and allowing us to do a great job with you every day.
On your radio, on TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
12 minutes before the top of the hour. Here we go on a Tuesday, September 16, talking Senate races and governor's races here in these midterm elections with Kyle Kondik. He covers this all for Crystal Ball, part of the University of Virginia Center for Politics. Kyle, always good to have you in studio. Again,
Thank you.
It's centerforpolitics.org/Crystal
Ball.
Crystal Ball. There you go.
Thank
Crystal
you.
Ball, all one word?
All one word.
All right. You got it. On the governor's races, you mentioned Kansas.
Mm-hmm.
Sam Brownback in trouble. Maybe I've seen a lot of comments from Republicans in Kansas that say this guy has just taken Tea Partyism too far, right?
The Kansas Republican Party is interesting in that it is, it's a state that's very Republican over time, although they do oftentimes elect Democratic governors, but at the federal level, super Republican, obviously. But it's a party that's historically kind of more of a moderate party.
It's a Bob Dole party.
Yeah, exactly. And Brownback is distinctly not from that wing of the party, to the point where his forces have tried to sort of purge the moderates, and they won some primaries against state senate incumbents and that sort of thing. But now the moderates are trying to fight back, and they're basically supporting Paul Davis, who is the House Minority Leader, Democrat, and Davis is tied or leading probably at this point.
Oh, right. That'd be stunning to see, but great for me, my part, to see Brownback defeated. Michigan is a strange case there. I mean, the governor really alienated. Michigan's always been a strong labor state with pushing the right to work through last year.
Mm-hmm.
Without any hearings and everything, the legislature just did it and the governor signed it.
So, Rick Snyder, the Republican governor of Michigan, his first termer, he is also in some trouble. The polling seems to indicate he's maybe just sort of slightly leading at this point against Mark Schauer, former member of the U.S. House, a Democrat. I wouldn't say that Schauer is particularly well known or anything. I would just say that Snyder has just sort of become a kind of controversial figure. And look, Michigan's a Democratic state. I mean, it's it's one that also has oftentimes had Republican governors. But I just think that one is just turning out to be very, very close. The Senate race there, it looks like the Democrats are probably going to hold that seat. And the Democratic candidate in the Senate race is Gary Peters, who is another. He's a current member of the U.S. House. But you would sort of expect Peters and Schauer to get a somewhat similar percentage of the vote. And if that happens and Peters wins the Senate race, obviously Snyder's in some trouble.
Mm-hmm. Right. Two of the most hated governors, I think, in the nation, Paul LePage in Maine. Three-way race at this point.
And so it's very close. Mike Michaud, he's a member of the U.S. House. Michaud. My mistake. I always mess that one up.
He's a neighbor here.
Okay.
He's been in studio,
there we go.
We know him well. Otherwise, I'd make the same mistake.
He is, I think he's just slightly ahead of Paul LePage. And then you've got Elliot Cutler, who's an independent, who in another three-way race last time came very close to beating LePage. But I think Cutler has fallen off to the point where I think that this is a place where LePage certainly could lose.
Yeah, Cutler was way down, and there's a lot of pressure among Democrats because Cutler has been a Democrat.
His vote basically comes from the Democratic column.
A lot of pressure on him to just drop out, accept reality and drop out, and I think he should do that, and hope he does it. And the other is Rick Scott in Florida.
Yeah, and that's another race that's it's super close, and it's been super close for months. He's running against Charlie Crist, the former Republican governor, who's now the Democratic nominee, and there's just going to be a ton of money spent there, and we'll see how it shakes out.
Have we ever had a case where a man or woman, elected a member of one party came back as elected to another party?
There is a good example.
Another party?
There is a good example from Virginia. Mills Godwin was a Democrat. He was elected in, I believe it was 1965, as a Democrat. And then in Virginia is this weird rule: you can only serve for four years. Then you have to give up the governorship. Mm-hmm. Then in 1969, Republicans get their first governor elected ever, or basically since Reconstruction in that state. And then 4 years later, Henry Howell, who's kind of a firebrand liberal, runs as an independent, and his opponent is Mills Godwin as a Republican, and Godwin wins as a Republican.
Wow! So. Boy, that's a little bit of trivia.
Yeah. So,
for Charlie Crist to come back as a Democratic governor, having served as a Republican governor,
just very recently, there is at least there may be other historical examples, but that is one. And of course, Virginia was going through a big change at that point from a sort of solid South conservative Democratic state to more of a Republican one, and of course now it's more of a Democratic state.
Right. And I'll give the report from California. Jerry Brown's going to win easily in California.
I think that's probably right.
All right.
No, I think that is right. Yeah.
Hey, Kyle, great to see you. Thanks so much.
Good to see you. Thanks.
We got about 6 weeks more to go here, so we'll keep up to date with you.
Absolutely.
On all these important races, and I'll come back and tell you. Important day for President Obama. We'll tell you what he's up to when we come back.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Hey, friends and neighbors, take a little time out now for just a word about Free Speech TV, how important it is, and how much we depend on your help. I hate to tell you this, but I've been around this radio and television business for a long time now, starting out with KABC TV in Los Angeles and KABC Talk Radio, moving on the radio front over to KFI Radio, and on TV over to KCOP Radio, and then bouncing back here to Washington, D.C., 6 years on CNN at Crossfire, and then a couple of years at MSNBC with Pat Buchanan on Buchanan and Press, and then Current TV, of course, covering and carrying our nationally syndicated radio show on a simulcast. But I got to tell you, with all of those different great organizations I've worked for, I have never felt that so totally free and so totally independent in terms of broadcasting the news of the day as I do here on Free Speech TV, because Free Speech TV, that's what it is. I mean, it's a progressive voice channel, 24/7, totally independent. As you know, no government funding and no corporate funding and no big donor pressure at all. Totally independent. And how do we do it? Well, that's thanks to you and to your support. We couldn't do without it. And that's why we turn to you once or twice a year to ask you to first of all, to thank you for being so generous, and then to ask you to help out again as much as you can. And there's some premiums that we can offer this time around, maybe to make it more attractive for you to dig in and help us out. If you can help us with just $10 a month, $120 a year, we'll send you a Bill Press mug and a pound of coffee. For $240, that mug, that coffee, and a French press. That's just $20 a month. For $30 a month, $360 a year, a mug, a coffee, the French press, and you'll participate in what we're calling Voices of the People. You and I will have a 5-minute phone conversation about whatever issue you want to talk about or issues you want to talk about, and we'll put all those together and we'll air them on our show as Voices of the People. You can be part of that. And if somehow you can make your way to Washington, D.C. and send $1,000 to Free Speech TV, make your way to Washington, Carol and I will take you out to dinner and bring you into the studio the next morning to watch the show. However, whatever level you can help out, please give us a call at 877-378-8669 or go to the website freespeech.org. Help as much as you can, and thank you for being so generous and allowing us to do a great job with you every day.
This is the Bill Press Show.
In the next hour, we'll start off with Jeremy Herb from Politico talking about ISIS, the threat of ISIS, and how we're dealing with it. And then Terry O'Neill, president of NOW, the National Organization for Women. President Obama today meets with General John Allen, who is head of the president's team to deal with ISIS. Big meeting in the White House this morning. And then he, at noontime, heads off to Joint Base Andrews Air Force Base, down to Atlanta, Georgia, and the Center for Disease Control, the CDC, where the president's going to announce a major new initiative to deal with Ebola and provide a lot more American leadership on that issue. And tonight he goes off to Tampa, Florida, where he'll spend the night. No briefing today.
This
back with
is the
hour
Bill
number 3.
Press Show.
Here reporting from Houston, Texas for Climate Desk. Now, one of the biggest uncertainties in climate science right now is the role of clouds. What better way to work that part out than flying right through them? That's what NASA scientists aboard this airplane think. Welcome to NASA's biggest airborne laboratory. You're coming with us today on an 8-hour NASA flight mission.
When you read these big IPCC climate assessments, what's the biggest uncertainty? There's two, right? The role of aerosols and clouds. Clouds is probably bigger than aerosols.
That is a piece of a puzzle that right now we are missing.
You can't get the models right if you don't understand the chemistry and the process.
Now we're being told we've got to get on. The doors are about to shut, so let's go aboard. you turn on the weather, every time you hear a climate change prediction, that information has to come from somewhere. And it starts by getting sucked out of the air from planes like this.
So this mission is to try to understand the emissions from the surface, so mostly biogenic emissions, so from trees and other plants.
Right now we're flying to our very first part of this experiment on the DC-8. Over Arkansas, there's a particularly pungent bouquet of emissions that scientists are interested in measuring.
Well, these emissions lead to both aerosols and to molecules that both destroy and create ozone. So these are very important things to understand for climate studies.
How it will manifest itself, it will be in more accurate and more reliable predictions.
So what we're doing is taking a series of flyovers, each at a different level of the atmosphere, scooping up those emissions, testing them, and hopefully scientists are going to see exactly what's in this column of air all the way up.
The data that we collect in one flight can keep busy 60 scientists and students for 3 years, 4 years. We're still studying data from data collected 20 years ago.
In fact, this particular mission today is its most heavily equipped in its nearly 30 years of service. Each one of these consoles here is a specially equipped scientific instrument designed to collect all sorts of different data in real time.
And this instrument here tracks the sun.
We're looking at mist chambers. They're used to strip soluble gases.
This black line is the CO2. It's about 390 ppm right now. We're putting these filters in the bags that we've got the aerosols that we trapped out of a certain amount of air. And so we're sampling up here about 150 liters a minute.
That ultimately flows back into the operational models. It flows back into what goes on TV every day.
Anyway, I got to get this sample going.
You do it. It's a busy man at work. We can't let him rest. Well, get this. We've just spent 2 hours crisscrossing this one cloud formation. In, back out again, back in again.
Then they grow, and we track them as long as we can, and then we let it go.
Even one cloud can hold a host of answers to the mysteries of climate change.
The patterns of, where the clouds are, what type of clouds we see, what kind of weather systems they're associated with it, that'll all be shifting in a shifting climate, in a world with climate change.
Then the big spark is this, is when we actually get the meat on the grill. And then it will be some time to process it.
The most important issue on this planet right now is to protect and conserve biodiversity in the world's oceans. And I don't think people realize just how intimate our connection is with the oceans themselves. Not only do they provide the very foundation of life and control our weather, but life just simply could not exist without a healthy ocean. The real problem, though, is apathy. It's all out of sight. It's all out of mind, and people don't even think about it. But it doesn't matter whether you live in Peoria or on the coast. The fact is, whatever happens in the ocean affects all life forms on the planet Earth. If the oceans die, then civilization collapses. We all die. We cannot live on this planet without the oceans. This is, in fact, not the planet Earth. It's the planet ocean, but because we're a land-dwelling species, we refer to it as Earth. But it is the planet ocean, and the oceans are the heart and the foundation of all life on the planet.
What the frack?
What the frack?
What the frack?
What the frack?
President Obama, are you fracking kidding me?
Reopen the EPA studies in Texas, Wyoming, and Pennsylvania.
Fracking pollutes our oceans.
Fracking poisons our water.
Fracking makes climate change worse.
Fracking relies on toxic chemicals that cause cancer.
Ban fracking now.
Ban fracking now.
Go on. Ban it.
Ban fracking now.
Please.
Number 16. Great to see you today. Thank you for joining us. The Bill Press Show coming to you live from Washington, D.C., our nation's capital. We got the House, we got the Senate in town today, and they actually might get some work done this week, believe it or not. And House Republicans might actually do a couple of things the White House wants, believe it or not. Well, you know, midterm elections, right? Anything could happen. We'll tell you all about it, bring you up to date on the news of the day here in Washington, around the country, around the globe, and give you a chance to comment by giving us a call at 866-55-PRESS, whether you're watching us on our worldwide video stream at TawkrTV, youtube.com/Tawker, TAWKR-TV, or listening on your local Progressive Talk radio station. You can join the program again at 866-55-PRESS. Send us your comments on Twitter at BP Show and on Facebook at facebook.com/Bill Press Show. Team Press in place today, Peter Ogburn and Elisa Murphy.
Happy Tuesday.
Hey, good morning.
Tuesday, just getting started here. Alicia Cruz here, back from a couple of days break. She's on the phones. Again, 866-55-PRESS, your ticket. And Cyprian Bolding, our videographer, on the job as well, making us all look good on our video stream, including our guest from Politico today, defense reporter Jeremy Herb. Hello, Jeremy. Good to see you.
Thanks for having me.
And lots to talk about, sort of defense-related. The president yesterday, I've been to several of these, and every one of them is a very moving ceremony of the president awarding the Medal of Honor to members of the military. Yesterday, a very unusual ceremony, particularly because he awarded the Medal of Honor to two Vietnam veterans, one posthumously, Specialist Donald Sloat. His brother received the medal for him, and the other to Sergeant Major Benny Atkins, who was actually there. And their stories are just incredible. The president noting these two brave servicemen.
Today we honor two American soldiers for gallantry above and beyond the call of duty.
And he talked particularly about the work, the service, I guess, extraordinary service of all Vietnam vets.
Vietnam vets were patriots and are patriots. You served with valor. You made us proud, and your service is with us for eternity.
I mean, the things that they do, every time I see one of these sermons, the stories they tell are just chilling. I mean,
it's crazy.
Incredible bravery. This Donald Sloat yesterday, a grenade comes rolling toward him and his men. He picks up the grenade and basically hugs it, and falls until it goes off, loses his life, and saves the life of his soldiers.
Yeah. And then the one that was there yesterday, I saw his story last night.
Shot 18 times.
He was shot 18 times.
Benny Atkins, yeah.
And then was leading his men out of the jungle. They had to. They were attacked by a tiger in the jungle after being shot.
Yeah.
And the guy,
as if being shot 18 times is
not bad enough.
Bad enough.
It's just a toughness that you never, ever see in person.
And it's great that this long, even after the war in Vietnam, we haven't forgotten. The president said these things get lost sometimes in a fog of war. But we do remember their service, and And on behalf of all Vietnam vets, they were honored yesterday. So Jeremy Herb here with us at the top of the hour. Terry O'Neill, president of NOW, National Organization for Women, joins us at the half. But first,
this is the Full Court Press.
Just a couple of other stories making news. It seems like every month we hear a story like this, but we did find out that August of 2014 was the warmest since records began started being kept in 1881. This is new data released by NASA earlier this year in May. That was the hottest month ever since we started keeping records. So in August, we just found out that was the hottest August that we've seen since at least 1881.
Do you think there might be something to this global warming?
Could be.
Could be. Talk, maybe.
This past Friday, the new iPhones went on sale on Apple's website. You can buy them in a store this coming Friday if you feel like camping out and waiting in line and dealing with that type of
It'll be longer than the line to District Donuts.
You're probably right. You're probably right. Well, we got some numbers on what kind of sales they saw. 4 million orders for the iPhone 6 and the 6 Plus. The 6 Plus is sold out for pre-order. You cannot get it on pre-order. You've got a chance to get one at the actual store when you go. But yeah, they are clearly selling. People clearly want them. So if you're hoping to pre-order one, you might be out of luck.
I haven't decided yet, but I'm tempted.
I got the 6. I pre-ordered the 6. I can't deal with a phone as big as the 6 Plus.
Yeah.
My pockets aren't that big. And you might not remember this, but back in the 90s, Coca-Cola launched a soda called Surge. It was their answer to Mountain Dew, which is a Pepsi product, so it's a very sugary, sweet, citrus drink. People bought it at first, but then they stopped buying it, so they phased it out. You can't buy Surge anymore. Until yesterday, when they announced that they're going to start selling Surge again, only on Amazon. So you can't buy it in the stores, but if you want to go buy a 12-pack of Surge Cola, you could go buy one on Amazon.
That's weird.
People apparently are very nostalgic for this. I never had the nostalgia for Surge.
Late night study sessions?
Yeah, maybe. I mean, it's super sugary and super caffeinated. That was its draw.
Mm-hmm.
But apparently people want it back. There's a Facebook page all about the nostalgia of Surge that has like 200,000 people that are on there. So Coca-Cola finally is answering that demand. You're going to be able to get
so happy to know that.
You want to run your teeth out? Go with your stupid teeth out.
We got it. Thank you, Peter. Yes, indeed. Jeremy, it looks like... So the president has said, and I want to talk to you next about the authority question, but the president asserts that he has all the authority he needs in terms of responding to ISIS with airstrikes inside of Syria. But he said he would welcome any support if Congress felt that they ever got around to doing so. Well, it looks like the House, in its own way, House Republicans might actually give him some support this week. What's that all about?
Yeah, that's right. So House Republicans are preparing to vote Wednesday on an authority that would allow him to arm and train the Syrian rebels, the moderate rebel groups that are supposed to fight against ISIS in Syria, also fighting the Assad regime. And this was kind of the ask that the president wanted to get from Congress, to give them a little skin in the game while still not tackling, at least not yet, the broader war authority about launching sustained military action in Iraq
So
and Syria.
are they going to say, yes, Mr. President, or this is a declaration of war, or is it short of that?
I think congressional leaders are shying away from calling this a war declaration. This was included in...
So is the White House, by the way.
Well, that's very true. That's very true. But this was included in previous legislation in the National Defense Authorization Act that the Senate Armed Services Committee passed. This specific, idea that we need to give money to train and arm the Syrian rebels to help them in this fight now against, both ISIS and Assad. There still could be that larger war debate. I think, after the midterm elections. One of the interesting things about the resolution that the House Republicans are planning to pass is that it expires in December along with the CR, which is going to force Congress to take this up again, whether it's the same authorization, whether it's a larger, broader war authorization. But they're going to have to do it again. But the key is in December after the midterm elections.
So let me be clear. So this vote this week will authorize the use of authorize money to train the moderate Syrian rebels, correct?
That's right, with the caveat that there's no money in the authorization.
So the Pentagon would have to shift money into this. Okay. And how long is that good for?
Till I believe December 11th is.
But there are strings attached, correct?
There are strings. So the House Republicans also included language requiring notification 15 days before the Pentagon spends any money to arm and train the rebels. And it also requires kind of a status update from the Pentagon after 90 days. They want. Republicans are critical of the president's foreign policy. There's skepticism about this whole plan in the first place. And so this was kind of their way to put some checks on it while still they are supporting what the president's asking for. And
well, at one of our briefings last week, Josh Earnest sort of let slip. I'm not sure he intended to, but that one of the reasons they're sure. Okay, the question was raised about these moderate Syrian forces. They haven't done so well for the last 3 years, so how can we think that this time they're going to do any better? And Josh says, well, one of the reasons we're pretty confident that we can count on them this time is because we've been training them now for like a year. So, was that a covert training operation, and this is an overt training? And
yeah, I think that's the idea. And the Pentagon has said the same thing. They got a lot of questions about this after the president announced it, and they basically said
we're already arming and training them.
We have to a certain degree, but this is a broader. It's $500 million. I believe the Pentagon said it can train 5,000 rebel fighters. It's overt. That is a difference in terms of the broader war, getting Middle Eastern allies on board with us, European allies.
Right. Now, will the House this week say anything about airstrikes inside of Syria? Will they authorize those as part of this resolution?
That's not part of this. Now, that is where the president says, I already have the authority to do this. Legally, it's unclear.
That gets us then to the next question. He says he's got the authority mainly through the authorization for the use of military force passed on September 14, 2001. And over the weekend, he also said, I also have the authority under the declaration of the approval of the war, the resolution approving the war in Iraq in 2002. Do any of those really apply to a war in Syria?
Well, that's a good question. Some members of Congress disagree, and the leadership though has backed down from that fight at least until the midterms, until November, until the midterms. I do think we're going to see a larger authorization then, but I think there's concern from the administration that it's not clear that Congress will pass a new war authorization. You look back to that 2002 Iraq vote, and a lot of members regretted that vote, Hillary Clinton obviously being the most notable. And so if Congress passes again, if things go badly, they're going to be on record as having supported this. And it's a messy situation in Syria right now, between Assad and the moderate rebels and ISIS. And this plan of airstrikes and no boots on the ground from the president, it's not entirely clear how you defeat ISIS without putting some boots on the ground.
But times have really changed. Okay, I mean, this debate over Congress only, according to the Constitution, having the authority to declare war has been going on for a long time. I've had that debate many times on Crossfire and when Pat Buchanan and I had our show Buchanan and Press. And it was, we haven't had an official congressional declaration of war since World War II.
Exactly.
So the Korean War and all these other wars have been presidential wars, right? And there have been always members of Congress who say, no, this is wrong. We cannot abdicate our responsibility. This is our constitutional duty, our constitutional responsibility. And they've always been demanding a vote. The president can't do this. Well, this time, Congress is basically saying, Be my guest. Be our guest, right? We don't want to deal with this stinking Constitution. We don't want to be asked to vote, at least not until after the midterm elections. What a bunch of cowards.
It's an interesting dynamic. And to be fair, there are some members who are calling from both parties.
There are.
But they're definitely a vocal minority.
In fact, Congressman John Garamendi was going to join us this morning, but they have a high-level briefing on ISIS this morning, so all the members of Congress have to be there. And Barbara Lee, she was with us last week. I mean, she's very adamant that there must be a congressional vote. And you're right, some members of both parties have said that. But the leadership, Mitch McConnell and John Boehner are not calling for it. Harry Reid's not calling for it. Nancy Pelosi's not calling for it.
And because I think they've seen how difficult to lift anything in Congress is to pass these days, and they only had the real problem they had, I think, is timing. They had 2 weeks here. Passing this train and equip resolution has been a bit of a heavy lift, and they didn't really want to do that. They're doing that because the president asked them to, basically, and that's been a heavy lift. So a broader war authorization.
So the president gave his big speech last Wednesday, and now, if I could take let me ask the question and think about. We'll take a quick break and come back and talk on the other side. But so he gave his big speech last week. And the main element of this seems to be, before any airstrikes in Syria, putting together an international coalition, particularly with partners from the region who are going to do the heavy lifting here with us. How real are those chances of putting together that kind of coalition with the partners we have over there? Jeremy Herb is here with us from Politico, defense reporter. 866-55-PRESS, toll-free number. Join the conversation when we come back.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Don't look at me. Your hair's a bit frizzy today. Aww, you should pick that up. Oh, you're such a dork. Loser. Here, let me help you with that. Oops.
Every day, kids witness bullying.
Oh, look. Your crush is looking at you. Poor you.
They want to help, but don't know how.
See, no one here's gonna help you, because no one
Teach your kids how to be more than a bystander. Visit stopbullying.gov.
If you drive buzzed, it could cost you around $10,000. You'll face major legal fees, major fines, and steep insurance penalties. You could lose everything. Nothing kills a buzz like getting pulled over for buzz driving, because buzz driving is drunk driving.
When some people struggle with their mortgage payments, they become frozen, petrified. Not knowing what to do, they do nothing. But the people who take action are far more likely to get the most positive outcome. Making home affordable is a free government program. Call now to talk one-on-one with a housing expert about the options that are right for you. Real help, real answers, right now.
Here at the GED Pep Talk Center, we have pep talkers standing by to get you motivated for your GED diploma. Text the name Terry to 69222 for a sympathetic pep talk.
You show people what you really are.
Or for a gentle pep talk, text the name Deborah.
You know you're going to make people very proud of you.
And if that's not enough, text the name Danny for an extreme pep talk.
Prove everyone wrong. Show them you're the boss.
Get your GED pep talk and find free GED classes. Text the name of the person you want a pep talk from to 69222.
Did you see the world differently? Did you celebrate the victory?
So today, I state clearly and with conviction America's commitment to seek the peace and security of a world without nuclear weapons.
to stand up against our greatest threat. Did you commit to change the world?
This is the Bill Press Show.
26 minutes after the hour here on a Tuesday. And when we come back, Terry O'Neill in the next segment. Terry O'Neill will be joining us from the National Organization for Women. Right now, we're talking America's response to the threat of ISIS with Jeremy Herb here, defense reporter for Politico. So how's this coalition thing going here, Jeremy? First of all, is the coalition going to include Iran?
Well, that seems pretty unlikely right now. But
we're talking with them.
We are talking. Kerry says he's open to talking with them, but Iran says that they don't want to talk with the U.S. about operations in Syria. It's a strange kind of dynamic because ISIS, Iran is against ISIS, the U.S. is against ISIS, just like the Syrian regime is against ISIS, but the U.S. obviously and Iran don't mix very well, and they're going through their nuclear negotiations right now. Public and private, you wonder, because if they're both on the ground, you don't want to be accidentally running into each other. You don't want planes flying. Publicly and privately, maybe there's a difference, but at the moment, it certainly doesn't look like there's any sort of coordination.
Yeah, Josh Earnest was asked about this yesterday at our briefing. He made it pretty clear.
Given Iran's significant military capability and given their significant interest in the outcome here, is the United States going to coordinate with Iran as we move forward on this military strategy? The answer to that is no.
No.
We're not.
No. We'll deal with them privately in these conversations, but we're not going to.
It's a public relations problem for Iran too. Their leaders don't want to be seen working with the U.S.
All right, so I did see the headline at the news. The Pentagon has said that some Arab nations have agreed that they're going to conduct the airstrikes. We will have to use our planes and our pilots. What nations? Do you believe that?
That's a very good question. So the stories came out over the weekend that Arab nations had agreed, but Secretary Kerry declined to say which nations had agreed. So it's still unclear who exactly is going to do that. I don't know that the airstrikes are such an issue, but in terms of getting troops on the ground to help with this, that's the big lift, I think.
Maybe there'll be masked pilots, so nobody will know what country they're from, what planes they're flying, right? Where the bombs come from.
You never know.
All right. Hey, Jim, it's so great to see you. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Terry O'Neill, National Organization for Women, next.
This is the Bill Press Show.
This is my computer.
This is your computer. Let's go on the internet.
Let's go. Click it.
Yes.
Okay.
I cursor in between the R and the E. Pressing down, I want you to just push the area.
She's gonna love me all over again.
That's it. Jamaica, here you go.
Here we go.
Good job.
Thank you. And I did it by myself. Feel smarter.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
So, same time next week?
Well, of course. Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free tips to help you save, go to Feed the Pig.
All right. I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay. So who's going to do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
Hey, thanks for stopping by. You know, I followed your character since the first episode. I'm a big fan, big fan.
Thank you.
And listen, your storyline, it makes for incredible TV drama. Thing is, your drug use is very adult content. Too adult for the kids. So I'm gonna have to block you.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Well, have a good one.
You're a nice lady.
On your radio, on TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
Here we go, 33 minutes after the hour. It is the Bill Press Show on a Tuesday, September 16. We're coming to you live from Washington, D.C., our nation's capital, our studio on Capitol Hill, and brought to you today by the American Federation of Teachers, the good men and women of the AFT, Teachers of America, under President Randy Weingarten, making a difference every day in America's classrooms, you bet. Find out more about their good work at their website, aft.org. No sooner did the scandal break and the controversy surrounding Ray Rice and video number 1, video number 2. Then Terry O'Neill, the president of the National Organization for Women, said, in effect, this fish stinks from the head down. And we got a look at Roger Goodell, and he's got to go. Terry O'Neill, president of NOW, joins us on our newsline this morning. Hi, Terry. How are you?
Great, Bill. It's good to talk to you again.
Thank you. Thank you so much for joining us. How does we see Ray Rice and all these other guys now accused of domestic abuse? The numbers are pretty staggering. How does it all relate to Roger Goodell? What's his responsibility here, as you see it?
Well, I think it has to be said that actually in the NFL, that most players in the NFL are not involved in domestic violence incidents, and I want to make sure that those players are not sort of dragged down by these incidents. What we found when we started looking into it, and I have to say that dreadful second video really brought us up short, and I said, what in the world's going on over there? So Roger Goodell has a responsibility as the CEO of the National Football League to respond appropriately when incidents of domestic violence do happen on his watch. He's had more than 50 opportunities to do the right thing, and every single time he has treated the incidents of domestic violence as an inconvenient PR problem that his main goal was to simply sweep under the rug. It's absolutely the opposite of leadership. And we think that right now, clearly the NFL needs to change. The top brass needs to change the way they deal with these incidents. And Roger Goodell is not a person who can credibly commit to the kind of change we need to see.
Has he created sort of a culture of violence, in a sense, or where if we've seen Adrian Peterson now abuse of his children, right? Or in these other cases you mentioned. Actually, the New York Times said yesterday or over the weekend, 85 documented cases in the last decade, I think, of domestic abuse, spousal abuse, abuse against women. So has Roger Goodell created a kind of a culture where this is sort of, if not, it's certainly not encouraged, but tolerated or accepted?
Well, he certainly has made it clear when you look at his actions that he doesn't take domestic violence seriously.
Right.
So if he has created a culture at all, or perhaps he inherited a culture where it was not treated seriously and he did nothing to change that. But I think what we've said is that Roger Goodell must step aside and his successor must appoint a truly independent and fully empowered investigator to go in and find out what has been the response of the NFL top brass, the owners, the top coaches, the commissioner. What's been their response to incidents of domestic violence, dating violence, sexual assault, and stalking within the NFL community? Because we have all these questions. Is there a culture of violence? Is that contributing to this awful response? And is that making the problem worse? Is there a culture of demeaning women? Is that somehow linked to the incidents of domestic violence? We don't have answers. We have many questions, and what we want is someone who is empowered to go in and ask those questions broadly and deeply throughout the organization, get good answers, and then make recommendations for change, and we expect the owners to implement those changes seriously.
Well, you mentioned the owners. Peter, you've been talking a lot about the owners.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to get into, because I agree. I think Goodell's got to go. I think that Goodell has been an enabler of the owners. But the owners...
an enabler of the players, too.
An enabler of the players, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, but the owners love Roger Goodell. Jerry Jones from the Dallas Cowboys said 100% of the NFL owners are with Roger Goodell right now.
Yeah, what does that tell you?
And so, yeah, that's what I want to get at is I get that Roger Goodell is a problem. I get that he should go. But what do we do to make sure that the next person that runs the NFL makes sure that these owners don't keep operating with the business as usual?
Yeah, that's an excellent question, because I think that the owners are a huge part of the problem. Now, not all of the owners are terrible, but for Jerry Jones to publicly say, hey, we're all 100% behind Roger Goodell. Jerry Jones is the man who is currently being sued for sexual assault. And what was Roger Goodell's response when the lawsuit was filed and made public? Radio silence. So it's not surprising, I suppose, that a man like Jerry Jones would appreciate that radio silence and would speak out in favor of Roger Goodell. But I would hope that there's 32 owners. I would hope that a critical mass, preferably a majority, but at least a critical mass of those owners would get together and say, hey, This truly is not okay. We haven't been paying attention. We are going to start paying attention. We'll remove Goodell, and we really will put a serious reformer in place. Look, the NFL is the most popular sports organization in the United States. It is a goose that lays many golden eggs every single year. And I can't imagine that those owners really want to see their operation soured in this way. But I can tell you, I believe that fans, it's getting harder, and it's going to continue to get harder for fans to watch football without that not in their stomach because of this black cloud that's now hanging over the organization.
Now, again, we're talking with Terry O'Neill, great president of the National Organization for Women, and their website is now.org. Terry, you talk about an independent commission, independent investigation. Does that mean you have no confidence in the one that the NFL has started under former FBI Director Robert Mueller?
Well, so that investigation is not an independent investigation. It's an internal review. Mr. Mueller's law firm works for the NFL, represents the NFL.
Right.
And he is supervised by two owners, one of whom, Mr. Mara, has already said publicly that there's no reason to believe Roger Goodell should go. So it's an internal review. There's nothing wrong with internal reviews. They can be very useful. It is a far cry from the independent investigation that we've called for.
Absolutely. Now, all this news occurs at the very time that we are marking the 20th anniversary of the Violence Against Women Act, right? I mean,
yes.
which says a lot about maybe we've come a long way, but we sure have a long way to go.
We really do. And I will say that the incidence of violence against women has actually dropped rather dramatically since the passage of the Violence Against Women Act, and that has occurred even though the programs established by the Violence Against Women Act have never been fully funded. We need better programs to train and educate police and court personnel and prosecutors. It would be very nice to have more public education about the dynamics of intimate partner violence. Those are programs that are created by VAWA, but have not been fully funded. And if they were, I think we would be a lot further down the road.
Does VAWA have I should know the answer to this, but I must admit I don't. Does VAWA have a shelf life? It has been renewed several times, hasn't it? I mean, what's the current life of VAWA?
It does, and it's really shocking to be in 2014 and look back to the 1990s and realize that in Congress there was enough opposition to actually passing a law that would try to address domestic violence and intimate partner violence, that the compromise that was cut was that we will pass this law, but it's only in effect for 5 years. So every 5 years, it has to be reauthorized. We just reauthorized it in 2013.
It's just absurd, the idea, right, that this is something that we would have to debate in the 21st century of whether this is okay or not.
Exactly, right? Exactly. And so, and I have to say, it is too bad that a terrible tragedy like the Ray Rice incident is required before we all pay enough attention that we really do something about it. But I think that precisely because the NFL is so beloved, because football is our favorite sport, I think we do have an opportunity to make some real changes. The NFL needs to be a role model. And right now, the NFL is lagging. They are the opposite of the role model that they have to be.
Now, I saw the pictures of that plane flying over one of the stadiums over the weekend, towing a banner, Goodell must go, or something along those lines. Was that a National Organization for Women operation?
It was not. It was one of our best allies, Ultraviolet. If you go on we are ultraviolet.com, they're just awesome. They've got a petition calling for Roger Goodell to resign as well. And they're strictly online. We are grassroots, community-based organizations, but Ultraviolet is just wonderful.
We are. What's the site again? We are Ultraviolet.
We are .org. WeAreUltraviolet.org.
Oh, okay, good. I saw that, and I thought, oh, there's Terry O'Neill. She's probably up there flying that plane. I didn't know. All right, Terry, you're out in front on this, as you are on many, many issues. Great leadership there for the National Organization for Women. No, it's a busy day for you. Thanks for taking your time this morning.
Thanks, Bill. Great to talk to you again.
All right,
Take care.
Terry O'Neill, great job, President of the National Organization for Women.
This is the Bill Press Show.
What gets you into college? Good SAT scores? High GPA? Lots of extracurriculars?
Sure, but what you really need is money.
If you don't have the cash, you'll need a loan.
And we mean huge student loans because the cost of college has risen 1,000% in the last 30 years.
This means big money for the banks that collect fees and interest.
Now, millions of young people are starting their adult lives with an average of $29,000 of loans on their backs.
Altogether, we're talking $1.2 trillion in student debt.
And more people are finding it impossible to pay them back. Welcome to the student debt crisis.
The increasing demand for higher education and cuts to state funding gave colleges a huge incentive to keep inflating prices.
I graduated about a year ago, currently in $35,000 of debt.
I am in debt about like $25,000.
I owe $23,000.
I owe over $50,000 in student loans.
38.8 million Americans owe money on a student loan. And the biggest names in banking are making huge profits off the booming student loan industry. Sallie Mae, the largest provider of private student loans, made $949 million last year.
They only give you about 6 months to look for a job. You have to start paying back the loan. It's very pressuring, especially nowadays. It's very hard to find a job.
Over half of the students graduating in 2012 could not find a decent paying job.
They either had low-wage jobs or unpaid internships or were unemployed altogether.
So you can't make the payments. You start incurring late fees, which makes the loan even harder to pay off.
And it stays with you for years, even decades.
Right now, a third of the people who started repaying their loans are delinquent or in default.
That's 13.7 million people, more than the populations of Chicago, New York, and San Francisco combined.
Worse, it's not just the borrowers who are in trouble. Many loans require co-signers.
So if the student is unable to pay, that co-signer, a father, a mother, or a grandparent, is now on the hook.
Even a grandparent's Social Security benefits can be garnished to pay the loan.
We should have an answer to this. If you get really behind in your car payment or your credit cards, you can file for bankruptcy.
But Congress has made it nearly impossible to discharge student loans through bankruptcy.
Big institutions make big profits while students try to make ends meet under crushing debt.
Is this how we want our education system to work?
The whole point of going to college is to get the career you want, but lately that's been discouraged because no one can afford school. You get a job just to pay off your student loans.
We need higher education, not higher debt.
Sign up to end the student debt crisis at higherednotdebt.org.
On your radio, on TV, and online. This is the Bill Press Show.
At 12 minutes before the top of the hour, Terry O'Neill joining us there from the National Organization for Women. Talking about the need for Roger Goodell to step aside and for the NFL to accept an independent investigation of just what's going on there in that league when it comes to lack of action, if you will, on incidences of domestic abuse. 85 of them, according to USA Today, over the last decade. Prompts a call from Chicago and Rick. Hello, Rick. Thanks for joining us.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. My feeling is, I have a daughter, and I would never even never in my mind think about striking my wife for any reason at all. But I mean, it's something that I see this reactionary knee-jerkism when it comes to what's going on. I mean, these people in the NFL are just people. They're not superstars. They're not extraordinary. They're just men that have screwed up, and they've already been charged with crimes. I mean, the situation is. I don't think the National Organization of Women really need to get involved and boycott and ask for Goodell's head on a stick and all that kind of stuff. I mean,
well, why not? Why not? I mean, Rick, let's say Ray Rice. Okay, you saw the video, I'm sure, of him striking his fiancée then in the elevator, and he's suspended for 2 games. I mean,
I think that was a bit light for sure.
And Roger Goodell made that decision, and he's made the same decision in other cases where he's suspended people for I don't know how many games, and then he backs off and gives them a. He's done this over and over again.
Well, there's a union in place, and the union issue has to be played out as well. I mean, they also have rights as union members.
But Rick, he is in charge. So look, it goes with the territory. I got to tell you, it's just like it happened on his watch, right? Even like Ronald Reagan used to say, "Happened on my watch."
Yeah, and I do think he is in charge, but he also answers to the owners. But that doesn't mean that he's off the hook. I think that fire Roger Goodell, yes. Fire Roger Goodell, end of story. But with the next person that comes in, you need to make sure that someone can not suck up to these owners, not answer to these owners in the way that Roger Goodell did.
Absolutely.
Does.
No. Yeah,
he's not gone yet.
Not gone yet, exactly. Absolutely. Hey, Rick, thanks for the call. Just, if you will, a little personal privilege here this morning. I just want to say a word about a very, very good friend of mine who passed away yesterday in Washington, D.C. You may hear about this no matter where you are in the country. Tommy Boggs died at the age of 73 of a heart attack. He was, and to say anything good about a lobbyist these days is sort of like people, well, what? You can't say anything good about a lobbyist. He was a wonderful, wonderful individual and the number one lobbyist in Washington, D.C., Tommy Boggs. He started his firm in 1966. For the last decade, his firm has been the number one firm until earlier this year when they were finally surpassed by another lobbying firm. But the thing about Tommy Boggs, he was really larger than life. He was first of all, he comes from one of the greatest political families in the country, the Boggs family. His father, Hale Boggs, was a congressman from Louisiana, killed in a plane crash. His mother then took over that seat, served for 9 terms in Congress, and then she was appointed ambassador to the Vatican by President Bill Clinton. Tommy Boggs, also the sister of Cokie Roberts of NPR and ABC fame, a family really knows politics inside and out. But again, and Tommy was one of the old-fashioned people who used to really represent what Washington was all about, in that he was a big Democrat, he was larger than life, he really fought for his clients. At the same time, he was always able to reach across the aisle, had many friends among Republicans. He and Haley Barbour, former Republican national chairman, actually started together a restaurant called the Caucus Room here in Washington, D.C. Tommy had a hunting lodge over on the Eastern Shore where he always had Tucker Carlson was one of his favorite guests, duck hunting. Haley Barbour, Tucker Carlson. It was always Republicans and Democrats coming together over there to shoot ducks and drink martinis and have a good time. When I have to say, on a personal level, when I came to Washington, my good friend, the late Chuck Manette, said, "There's one person you have to know in Washington, Tommy Boggs." And we had lunch at the Palm, the 3 of us. And I'll never forget, Tommy Boggs, the legendary Tommy Boggs, sits down, says hello, and he says, "I hope this is the last time I ever have lunch with you." And I almost fell off my chair. And I said, "What did I do wrong?" And he said, "No, because I only have lunch with people when they either first come to Washington or get in trouble. And so I hope I never see you again at lunch." And I never had lunch with him again. But I saw him often. He was always wonderful, wonderful friend to me. And when my first book came out, Spin This, Tommy Boggs threw a book party for me at his law firm right at the entrance to Georgetown. So He was a great friend, a great individual, and really represented the best of Washington, and certainly the best of the lobbying industry and the lobbying business. Tommy Boggs, great man, will definitely be missed. I'll be back with today's parting shot.
This is the Bill Press Show.
It is possible to read the history of this country as one long struggle to extend the liberties established in our Constitution to everyone in America. In other words, who, according to our laws and culture, gets to be considered a person? The law creates legal personhood, and movements create law and change culture. So, how have the courts passed laws to shape our culture? That history goes way back before Citizens United. 1819, Dartmouth College versus Woodward, Supreme Court case, turned a corporate charter from a government-granted charter to a contract. This ruling gave corporations standing within the Constitution. 1886, Santa Clara County versus Southern Pacific Railroad. Though the court did not rule on corporate personhood, the decision was subsequently cited as a precedent to hold that a private corporation is entitled to the same 14th Amendment rights of due process and equal protection as human beings. This makes it impossible for us to make laws that treat local businesses any differently than giant multinational corporations, even if their business practices are deemed to be harmful to workers, the environment and communities, or if they have a history of violating the law. Hale versus Henkel, 1906. The court granted corporations the Fourth Amendment search and seizure protection. Dodge versus Ford Motor Company, 1919. The Michigan Supreme Court says the business corporation is organized and carried on primarily for the profit of the stockholders. Stockholder primacy is established. The purpose of the corporation, according to the court, is no longer to serve the public good, as it had been. It is now to maximize profit for shareholders above all else. Pennsylvania Coal Company versus Mahon, 1922. Corporations get the Fifth Amendment takings clause, meaning if you pass a regulation that impacts a corporation's ability to make a profit, that is deemed a taking, and they can sue for the right to future profits lost. This creates a chilling effect, and local and state governments become much more hesitant to pass laws in the public interest for fear that corporations can claim loss of potential profits that cities and states will be on the hook to pay. Buckley versus Vallejo, 1976. The Supreme Court rules that spending money to influence elections is protected under the First Amendment, in effect saying that money is speech. Citizens United versus Federal Election Commission, 2010.
Today, the Supreme Court of Chief Justice John Roberts declared that because of the alchemy of its 19th century predecessors in deciding that corporations had all the rights of people, any restrictions on how these corporate beings spend their money on political advertising are unconstitutional.
The court's ruling threatens to undermine the integrity of elected institutions across the nation. It's a rejection of the common sense of the American people.
The Parting Shot with Bill Press. This is the Bill Press Show.
Hey, Hillary Clinton might have gotten all the attention in Iowa this weekend, but she wasn't the only one in the state. Maybe you noticed as Senator Bernie Sanders also showed up. He, too, was making the rounds of potential supporters. He, too, drawing huge crowds and dropping hints about 2016. Bernie made it clear he's thinking of running no matter what Hillary decides. We don't anoint people in the United States, he told USA Today. What's good for America is a serious debate about very, very serious issues that America faces. And Bernie said the issues that he's going to run on will include reducing income inequality, curbing corporate influence, and getting serious about climate change. And if nobody else raises those issues, he will do so. He will run and do so. And let's hope he does. You know, Democrats don't need a coronation in 2016. We need a good debate on the issues. Go, Bernie, go! That's it for today, folks. Look for you tomorrow morning.
This is the Bill Press Show.